Welcome to episode 316 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Today on the show, we talked about a lot of things, another batch of personal statements, and we listed out a bunch of rules that we think were violated on today's show. We also talked about, all the crazy score increases we've seen recently.
Yeah, Vlad sent us in a nice email about his 27-point increase. We'll lead with that at the top of the show. And then in the very end of the show, close to the end of the show, we get to Vlad's personal statement, which we made it through about 2 sentences of. And then we said, rejected.
Yeah.
Try again.
We also did a logical reasoning question, and today it was a reasoning question, which is a certain question type. But in any case, this will air on Monday, September 20th. The November LSAT registration deadline is right around the corner on Wednesday, September 29th. The October LSAT is coming up soon as well. That starts October 9th. And then the November LSAT is November 13th, or at least starts then.
Yep.
If you haven't signed up for Demon Free and attended Nathan's October 2021 LSAT study group, I would strongly encourage you to do that. It's free. And
we're adding stuff to the Demon Free all the time. This week, we added 2 new classes. We added an advanced logical reasoning class that I taught. You can watch the recording of that with the Demon Free account.
Okay.
We also added a class called the LSAT is Easy. That's probably the thing that you should watch first. It's an hour-long discussion about the state of the LSAT, the digital LSAT, which is basically here to stay, the experimental section, which you might have heard about, which is now back, and really the rationale behind why law schools only care about your highest LSAT score, which is the fact that the 509 reports are a thing. We talked a lot about scholarships. The tagline on this show is "Don't pay for law school," and that really is our core mission: is to save you $250,000 on law school. And so we talked about our scholarship estimator and how you can get lots of very useful information about law schools and how you can better position yourself for the negotiation that you're going to have with whatever school you end up going to.
Yeah.
So that's all in this free class, which you can watch a recording of. It's called, and then we also talked about what the LSAT tests and why they test it. I thought it was a very useful 1-hour kind of introductory thing. So maybe check that out, get yourself a Demon Free account and go look for that class called the LSAT is Easy.
Yeah. So to do that, you go to lsatdemon.com, you click sign up, click on the free plan. And then once you're logged in, you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see a classes tab. You just click on that. And in the search, you can search for easy. And I bet that will pop up right away. So.
Yeah, and we're just intensely interested in making our free resources the best thing that's out there. I mean, we didn't do 316 episodes of the Thinking LSAT podcast because we didn't want to help as many people as much as we can, right? Like that's our kind of a core part of what we do. Yeah. And like if you're using Khan or whatever, okay, it's better than nothing. But we think our free resources are far better than what Khan offers. And so I would encourage you to at least check it out, watch a couple videos, come to my study group that's live on Zoom every Thursday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Come talk to us, ask us some questions. We think we can help you a lot, regardless of whether you ever pay us a dime. We think we can help you a lot.
Yep. And there's also our other short form podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. Those are anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes and they come out every day.
Before we dive in, we are hiring. If you would like to help us out with customer service, telephone during business hours, maybe TA for our classes, help test new features of the Demon, you can email applications to help@lsatdemon.com. No LSAT score required for any of those roles. If you have a 170 something LSAT official on record and you would like to teach or tutor for us, that's my department. You can email me. I'm Nathan at lsatdemon.com. We love hiring former students and podcast listeners. So, if you're a fan of the show, fan of the Demon, and you think you would like to teach for the Demon, it's super fun and super rewarding. Email me, Nathan at lsatdemon.com.
All right. So this first email is from Voldemir. He says, "Hey guys."
There's two O's there, so I want to say Vladimir.
Volodymyr. My bad. Yeah, well, I'm horrible.
It's like very similar to Vladimir, but it's got to be Vladimir, I think.
Vladimir. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Vladimir.
Actually, you know what? I think I know that he goes by Vlad, so I think we can just call him Vlad.
Vlad.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
I think. Okay. My bad if I'm wrong.
Hey guys, I wanted to let you know that you guys rock. And then he's got multiple exclamation points. Cool.
Yep.
I just got my LSAT score and it is beautiful. Beautiful. Love that term. In 6 months of studying with you, I got from a diagnostic 142 score to an official 169.
Wow.
It's all thanks to the Demon. I am also registered for the October exam. I will take it, but I think I will still apply with my current score. With a 3.86 GPA and a 169, I hope I can get into a good law school. Praise the Demon. P.S. I would like to be read on the Thinking LSAT, if possible. Granted. What do you think about this apply now and take the October test?
I think that makes sense. I don't think that he's going to get instantly denied with a 3.86 and a 169.
Yeah.
So I think at almost every school, he could go ahead and get that application in early, put himself on the radar of all of these schools that he's targeting. It's possible that for a Harvard, Stanford, Yale type of situation, maybe you want to wait. Like I guess I could see Stanford waitlisting somebody with those numbers.
Yeah, well, here's an easy rule, right? Put it in the scholarship estimator, and if you're not getting a free ride, maybe wait.
Yeah, or at least like half to full. It should say half to full or better, and then go ahead and fire those applications in. If it's not telling you that you're likely to get a big scholarship, then yeah, I could see an argument for holding off for that October score. I do think that he should get greedy and take it again in October.
Totally.
It's so frequent that we have people who want to settle, well, my goal score was 165 and this is a 169, so I'm done. And it's like, yeah, but you have practice tests on record that indicate that you could probably squeeze out a few more points, and law schools clearly only care about your highest score. So why not take it again? We have an email on our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily, from a student who very similar to this, right? It was like, oh, I've already made a 25-point improvement. And we were like, yeah, but your practice tests were even higher than that. You ever think about trying? And she did. And she with a 31 point improvement in the end, and actually cracked the 170s. And I think she's super glad that she took it again. So Vlad, I do think that you're on the right track by wanting to take October. I suppose we should make a side note here. We do offer LSAT prep. Sometimes our listeners listen for a long time and then they don't realize that we actually are in the business of helping people improve their LSAT scores. We would love to work with you. You just got to go to lsatdemon.com and everything that you need is there. We teach live classes. We have self-study options. There's just all kinds of different ways that we can help you at lsatdemon.com. 30-point improvements used to be like totally unheard of.
Yeah.
And they still are rare.
Mm-hmm.
But scores just came back the August test. Yeah. Or last week, scores came back for the August test. Holy shit. Did we get a mountain of people telling us that they improved by 15, 20, 25. It's like not even really remarkable anymore. It's, now instead of like, oh my God, this guy improved by 20 points, it's like, oh my God, so many people improved by 20 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real. I mean, it's happening all the time. And so if you're stuck, we would love to try to get you unstuck. We have a documented track record of like really helping people a lot on this test.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want this to be a commercial, but
Well, no, I mean, I can't help but think that the combination of drilling, which is an effective way to study, and a continual emphasis on trying to actually understand the test can't
yeah,
be useful, right? That
it's so
has to
weird.
be.
It's like so obvious, right?
Yeah.
But I was working with a student last night, refugee from Power Score, who did all the things, did the full Power Score class, did all the Bibles, did 30-40 practice tests, like very sincere working military guy.
Yeah.
And he was stuck. And one of the things he said to me was like, oh, I've had a Demon subscription for a week. And when I look at explanations, one of the things that really changed my entire thing about the test is take it one sentence at a time and really engage with it.
Yeah.
And I like started laughing. It seems like the most odd thing in the world, but what you're talking about is actually understanding this shit. It's like, yeah. Down, we're going to behave like a lawyer, we're going to actually understand each piece as we go, and we that the test is actually easy. I don't know why that's so surprising in this business, but we're focusing on any kind of gimmicks and tricks and shortcut bullshit. It's like, no, the test makes perfect sense, but you have to make sense of it. So you have, it's so silly to be able to help people so much by just getting across that one point.
Yeah.
You have to read it. Not just skim over, not just eyes glazed over, but like actually get in there and understand it. Once you do, you realize it makes perfect sense. I don't know. We're very, very lucky, Ben. We are extremely lucky to do what we do. It's like not hard, right? It's just like common sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, cool. Vlad, if you're hearing this, since you specifically asked that you would like this email to be read on the Thinking LSAT podcast, which it already has been, another thing that you could do is you could get your voice onto the Thinking LSAT podcast. It would be beautiful if you could just record a short thing on your phone of you saying, hey, this is Vlad. I improved my LSAT from 142 to 169 using the LSAT Demon, and say whatever else you want. But little things like that would be amazing snippets for the show.
How much you love or hate us, it would be entertaining.
My name's Vlad and you guys suck.
But
fuck you. Yeah.
We need some of that. All right. Yeah. No, send it in. That's for anyone. We'd love to get your voice on the show. So
help at thinkinglsat.com.
Cool. All right. So next up, we have a logical reasoning question. Let's feel like, is it my turn to read it or yours?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're gonna actually understand it. We're gonna go one sentence at a time. We're gonna expect it to be poorly written, kind of convoluted. We're going to expect the argument, if there is an argument, we're going to expect that argument to be incomplete, if not downright flawed. Sometimes it's valid logic, but we're expecting it to be kind of bullshit. But we're going to understand what it says, and we're going to understand what it's trying to do. And we're going to do that before we mess around at all with the question and, God forbid, the answer choices.
Sounds good. I was getting ready to skim it, but if that's what you want to do. All right. So this is just, no, that's good. It's good. Every time I teach logical reasoning, it might be on a certain topic, but I'm like, okay, let me make something perfectly clear here. This is what we're going to do first. And then my discussion about necessary and sufficient assumptions or whatever is really secondary, because you don't want
Yeah.
people to get like caught up in that, right? You're like, yeah, that's important, but I really don't want you to forget the number one goal, which is nice because it's always the same. It's always the same. It's not like you have to go and memorize, oh, what should I do for this? It's like you always do the same thing. You read and you understand, and it doesn't even matter what section you're in. Logical reasoning, games, reading comp, whatever.
Yep.
So this is test 73, section 2, question 16. It says the top prize in architecture, the Pritzker Prize, is awarded for individual achievement, like Nobel Prizes for science.
Okay. Not a lot to unpack there. Just it is an award in architecture. It's the top prize in architecture.
Yep.
And then they make this simile or comparison to Nobel Prizes for science. I get it. I understand what a prize is. Okay.
Cool.
Sure.
But architects are judged by their buildings, and buildings are the result of teamwork.
I guess they're going to probably say something like, so this is where the reading comprehension strategy of like predicting what you're going to read next kind of comes in. That but makes me indicate that like, oh, so maybe there's a difference between architecture and science, because you just brought up this comparison, but then you're saying, but architects are judged by their buildings, and buildings are the result of teamwork. And so then that makes me think, wait, so is the Nobel Prize for science not teamwork based? I'm thinking that's got to be where they're going to go next.
What's funny about that too is that I'm anticipating the same thing, but I'm also almost already coming up with counter arguments too, because I'm like, well, in science, someone might come up with something, but it's not like they did it by themselves. Maybe they did. But
yeah, no, that is my reaction to it too. It's like, wait, are you gonna tell me that science isn't the result of teamwork?
Yeah.
There's no way that you're building the Large Hadron Collider or whatever the hell that thing is.
Sure.
You're not doing that by yourself. That's obviously got to be a team effort. So anyway,
it continues. As achievements, buildings are not like scientific discoveries, but like movies, which compete for awards for best picture.
What?
Okay.
I mean, movies are obviously also a huge team effort.
Yeah.
I mean, making, whatever most recent, Pixar movie or whatever, that shit took 10 years and thousands of people.
Yeah.
But I think scientific discoveries are too. So they kind of are like, this is conclusory, right? I mean, I guess I get it that a building is not like a discovery.
Yeah. It's like
that part I can understand. Yeah. Well, like a building and a movie is very intentional, but I guess I still would be pushing back going, yeah, but so is that fucking gigantic collider. I mean, like they might not have been sure exactly what they were going to discover, but they definitely knew what they were doing or trying to do.
Yeah. Well, now it makes me think, maybe this person has a point, but also maybe everything is teamwork. So science should be reconsidered, right? How they award those things.
Okay. Keep going here.
Thus, it would be better if the top prize in architecture were awarded to the best building rather than the best architect.
Okay. Their point is this is a team effort.
Yep.
Why are we giving the top prize in architecture for individual achievement if a building is a team effort, just like a movie? But then it's just so strange. I mean, that's how these arguments are, right? Like they're just inherently bullshitty, because it's like, but you just said that like movies, which compete for awards for best picture. But that's like giving the building the award. Best picture is for the best movie. Oh, wait. So that's what they're saying is like,
That's what
yeah,
they're
let's give
saying,
it to let's give the picture. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Then I make the argument the other way, which is
Sure.
also give Oscars for director and for
Yeah.
screenplay and
Yeah.
for actor. And so they give plenty of individual achievement awards in the movies. I guess
Yeah.
Best Picture is the biggest award, though. That seems like that's the top prize. And if
Mm,
this is the top prize for architecture, then I can see where they're so,
mm,
okay, wrapping my mind around it. They're making an argument by analogy, right? They're
yep.
saying, well, it's not really like science, which is discovery based, or this is more like movies, which are building a big thing in a team effort. And so maybe the award for architecture should be more like the top award for movies. It didn't actually explicitly state anything about, best picture, but
Yeah.
that seems to be their point, right? Like, well, we
Yeah.
give an award for the top movie. We should give an award for the top building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the two questions in my mind are, well, is this a legitimate argument? And because it's an analogy, you always have to wonder, is the analogy a good one? And so in my mind, I'm wondering, is creating a building more similar to creating a movie, or is it more similar to, discovering something in science? And I have to say, I'm a little sympathetic to this argument. I guess creating a building does seem a little bit more like creating a movie than discovering something.
Yeah, but like you can also make the argument the exact opposite way, right? It's like you're sympathetic to it. What that means is you can understand it,
Yeah.
but you also are going to be able to recognize the inherent weaknesses in both the analogy and the like anti-analogy, which they're doing here, right? They're
Sure.
saying it's not scientific discovery, it is movies. And my counter argument to the it's not scientific discovery, my counter argument is, but science is also a big group team effort in most cases.
Yep.
And then my argument against the pro analogy that they're trying to draw here, where they're saying, oh, no, it's like the movies. Yeah, they give plenty of individual awards in the movies.
Sure. Sure. So the first question I'm asking myself is the analogy a good one? All right. And that's what we were just debating. The second question I'm asking myself is, okay, well, even if the analogy is a good one, have we established that the way they do things in the movies is the best way? Right? Like you could be like, hey, I've proven to you that building a building is much more like movies than like science. Okay, let's assume that's true for a half second. Does that mean that we should do what they do in the movies?
Yeah.
Because maybe what they're doing there isn't the best way to award people, right? So
Totally.
there's problems.
Okay.
Needless to say. The question says the argument proceeds by
reasoning question. We call it a reasoning question. It's a variety of a must be true type of question, which are super, super common. They're testing your reading, I think, more than they're testing anything else. They want you to pick an answer here that is conservatively rooted in the words on the page. I know in advance that there are going to be wrong answers that like oversell whatever the argument actually did. Because that's just that's, I think, the easiest way for the writers of the test to create attractive, but nonetheless wrong answers. I mean,
Sure.
they have to make 4 wrong answers for every right answer.
Yeah.
So what they do on must be trues generally, and what they do on reasoning questions specifically, is they'll have an answer that starts off basically correct. Yes, they did this thing that's being described. And then they just kind of add a little something different or a little something extra, a little something more than. It could be more specific or it could be more broad.
Yeah.
Just more. That's what the wrong answers are going to look like, where it's like, nope, they didn't do quite all that. I can't vouch for that. The one right answer is going to be the one where if I was asked to testify, if the judge was like, hey, counsel, is this thing in the record? Does it say that in the record? I would be able to go, oh yes, Your Honor, it's in the record. I mean, it's right here.
Yep.
Nothing different, nothing extra. It's in the record. That's what I'm looking for.
Perfect.
I'd probably make a prediction here as well. I mean, I think that an analogy could definitely have something to do with it, right? Like this argument clearly did proceed by making this analogy to other things. Yeah,
exactly. So the argument, people get hung up by that phrase, proceeds by. The argument proceeds by. In other words, how does it unfold? How does it proceed? How does it go forward? Right.
But you don't even have to. It's actually, they're not at. They don't even really mean that. They don't mean for you. This question type, the correct answer does not have to capture the entire argument.
No, it does not. I'm not saying that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I think what students should do is when they see the argument proceeds by, you can actually just cross out proceeds by. I mean, it's like the argument does
what? Yeah.
The argument did one of these 5 things. And it doesn't at all have to capture the entire argument. It doesn't have to capture the main conclusion of the argument. It could be just anything that the argument did.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, which comes back to one other point about the LSAT. Being incomplete is okay. Being inaccurate is a serious problem.
Yep. The wrong answers here are going to be inaccurate. They're going to be too much. They're going to be extra or different. The right answer can totally be just like one tiny part, mentions an analogy. Sure.
Yep. So the argument proceeds by A, reaching a conclusion about the way something should be done in one field on the basis of comparisons with corresponding practices in other fields.
Totally.
Okay.
The conclusion, I mean, yes, Your Honor, this argument did make a conclusion about the way something should be done in the field of architecture. Specifically, it said it would be better if the top prize were awarded in this other way. So that's a conclusion about the way something should be done. And it did make 2 comparisons to corresponding practices in other fields. It talked about the Nobel Prize for Science. It talked about the award for Best Picture. So it's clearly talking about, it's making comparisons. One of them was like positive. It was like it should be like this, but it shouldn't be like this. But that's comparisons to corresponding practices in other fields. That's the answer. I mean, I would click it.
Sure.
And then I would skim B, C, D, and E, each of which I know are wrong 80% of the time, because all answers are wrong 80% of the time. But here I'm now like 99% B, C, D, and E are all going to be wrong. I'm just going to check to make sure that I have a reason. And that reason can be as simple as, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Cool.
Okay.
B, the argument proceeds by making a distinction between 2 different types of objects in order to conclude that one has more inherent value than the other.
No. Where did it say? It didn't say architecture is better than science.
And I just, objects, like what objects? Like the prize itself.
Yeah, it's not like the Pritzker Prize is worth more than the Nobel Prize.
Sure.
Which that's what it would have to have said, something along those lines to make B correct.
C, the argument proceeds by pointing to similarities between 2 practices as a basis for concluding that criticisms of one practice can rightly be applied to the other.
There weren't any criticisms of any practice.
Nope.
It was never like
we don't
movie people are super mean to their interns. Therefore, architects
or the practice,
are really mean to their interns.
Or the practice of awarding, prizes to best picture has been criticized by whom?
No, I don't think this author is criticizing a practice of giving the Pritzker Prize for individual achievement, like for an
Yes.
architect. Like that's the author doesn't like that practice, but the author doesn't say like, well, they do it over there and it's wrong over there, so it's also wrong over here.
Yeah. Or
Rather,
that or that criticisms of one of the practices can rightly be applied. Like
right.
what criticisms from who? It's just like I can't point to anywhere in the record that mentions criticisms.
Okay.
D, the argument proceeds by arguing that because two different fields are disanalogous, the characteristics of one field are not relevant to justifying a conclusion about the other.
Nah, that would, okay. So to make that the correct answer, the argument would have to have said, architecture and movies are totally different. So the fact that movies have this one characteristic doesn't mean anything about architecture.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of what this argument is doing. It would be like, there's no analogy here, so we can't draw any conclusions on the basis of it.
Right.
E, the argument proceeds by contending that an action is inappropriate by presenting an argument that a corresponding action in an analogous case is inappropriate.
I mean, I guess the argument is kind of saying it's inappropriate to give the Pritzker Prize for individual achievement.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But the way it proceeded was, hey, movies award Best Picture. We should do that.
Mm-hmm.
What he's describing is it's wrong of them to do it in that case. Therefore, it's also wrong to do it in our case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which,
because it says in an analogous case. And so
they were trying to present science as a disanalogous case.
Yeah.
Right. So that it's just, boy, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's close. It's using all the right words, but the meaning of that is not, it's just, that's not what they did. You know, we have to read this carefully enough to actually understand it. You have to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I already made sense of A. I'm willing to stand up and testify that A is accurately reflects the record. B, C, D, and E, they got a lot of the right words, but the meaning of them just, they're all slightly wrong. And so the answer is A.
Here's one thing. If you're still a little stuck on E, think about it this way. The author didn't say that what they did in science is inappropriate or what they did in movies is inappropriate. In fact, the author seems to agree with what they do in science and with what they do in movies and says, therefore, that's what we should do, or because that's what we do in movies, that's what we should do in architecture. If you want to talk about what's inappropriate, the only thing that's inappropriate is what we do in architecture, but the author didn't say that that was inappropriate in the analogous cases, right, such as movies.
Yeah, it was like, it's appropriate what they do in science, but we're not like science.
Yes.
It's also appropriate what they do in movies, and we are like movies. So we should do what they do in the movies, not we should do what they do in science. But yeah, it was never saying that any of these analogous or disanalogous cases, the behavior in those fields is not ever described as inappropriate for those fields.
Correct. Cool.
The way to improve your LSAT logical reasoning is one question at a time. I cannot stress this enough. Students all the time, they want to like do this whole big mass amount of practice, and they want to like then try to tease out these trends and themes and certain question types that I struggle with or whatever. I don't think any of that is really the most efficient way to go about it. I think you should do one question at a time. In the Demon, we call that drilling. You do one question, and then, man, if you miss that question, you get pissed about it. And you like really dig in to the written explanation or the video explanation. And you have to sort it out before you move on to some other shit. You have to sort that one question out.
I know you're going to kill me when I make this analogy yet again, but I was working out this morning, right? And I have to emphasize this. Like when I do a set, I look back at what I did before. So it might be like 6 reps or something like that. But I actually ignore that 6 and I focus on doing rep 1 and then rep 2 and doing rep 3 like perfectly. And then if I get to 6, great. But if I focus on doing 6 reps, like if I focus on the end goal, then I'll get sloppy because it's like I'm trying to get to that point as opposed to just doing the best I can on the one I'm doing right now. And then it's like, once that's done, I can focus 100% on the next rep. And then that makes it so that each of them are like good reps as opposed to like cheat reps, because I'm so concerned about getting to the end or doing worse than I did last time. And usually I end up doing better.
That power score, I think that analogy is perfect. I'm not going to kill you at all for that. The power score refugee that I was working with yesterday, he did the typical thing. I had him share his screen with me.
Yeah.
And I can see his whole section. And he wanted to talk about question number 20. And we talked through question number 20. And it actually was a reasoning question. And he had missed it in a predictable way, just not really understanding what they're asking. And but after our 15 minutes or whatever, making sure that we were like 100% clear on why the right answer is right and why the wrong answer is wrong, and how it took 2 mistakes for you to miss that question and you have to clean that up. And it was a very productive discussion of that one question. But then before we move on, I also have to look at that bottom line there where I can see the right and wrong answers throughout the entire section.
Yeah.
And this dude who's really trying to reach 170, he's stuck, he can't clear that last hurdle to get to 170. And of course he wants to talk to me about the hardest LR question in the section.
Yeah.
But I look down and I see number 9 wrong and number 10 wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey dude, what about these earlier reps that you cheated?
Yeah.
Like your problem is not actually that real hard one. Your problem is you're leaving so much on the table on those earlier, easier ones. And this whole thing makes perfect sense if you make sense of it. But I mean, you're not actually doing those questions. You think you're doing them, but you're not doing them because you didn't solve it. You didn't get the right answer.
Yep.
You did not solve the question. It's solvable. There's one right answer. There's 4 wrong answers. You didn't take the time to actually solve it. Therefore, you got 0 instead of 1. And you did that on 2 questions in a row on the first 10. And you're not gonna score in the 170s if you keep doing that shit.
Yeah.
Like that's your problem. I know your problem. Your problem is you're sloppy. I know that you don't intend to be sloppy, but you're definitely sloppy because you needed to get paid for those questions. If you think you're gonna make it to 170,
well,
not that way.
What's crazy too is you said that he was stuck, right? And he's trying to get to 170, he's stuck. I would say it could be even worse than being stuck, in the sense that when you're being sloppy and you're missing question like 7 and then question 9, which you should be nailing, I think you're actually on a deep level forming a bad habit.
Oh, for sure. Because, if you're going to miss number 9 and 10, then I guarantee that there's other questions, even inside that first 10, that you don't really get it. You half-assed it. You got it right, but you kind of got lucky. And so, you're building this it's bad form, right? I mean, you're just
building this bad form. Yeah. You're like used to understanding something 85% of the way there. And then it's like, D seems, that makes the most sense. And you pick it and you're right sometimes.
Yeah. But sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah.
And when you go back and review it, you're like, oh, you shrug and you're like,
oh yeah, that was my next choice. And it's
right. Right. And it's like, okay, yeah, but the wrong answer you picked is objectively wrong for these reasons. Like, you vouched for that answer. That answer is not what the record reflects. And we can talk about why. Furthermore, how did you not pick this other answer, which is correct, which is right there on the page, which is the credited correct, again, objectively correct answer? And you didn't pick that. And people just are kind of like, oh yeah. Well, there was something in that.
I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah. And this guy was not like that at all. But that is the common that's the common mode that people have, where they think it's okay to just make these casual mistakes and pick a second best answer. And it's like, no, that answer wasn't even second best. It's objectively wrong.
Yeah.
And you made two mistakes. It's not one, it's two mistakes to miss that question.
Yeah.
People love looking at that wrong answer that they picked, and being like, well, yeah, but I just thought it meant this or something. And it's like, okay, fine, but there's this other answer. Did you fully consider that other answer? Because that other answer is the correct answer. Or they do it the other way, right? Where it's like, well, I didn't like some part of whatever the correct answer is. I didn't pick that because I didn't like X.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, but you vouched for this other answer, which is worse. I mean, just like clearly wrong.
Z and
yeah, like it's wrong for three
and
different reasons, and you picked that instead. I mean, I get it that you didn't like fall in love with the correct answer, but how the hell did you pick that?
Yeah.
And that's how, I'm not trying to beat anybody up, but that's how people end up eventually scoring perfect on the logical reasoning, is that they just refuse to make both of those mistakes on the same question. All right, end of lecture.
Nathan out. Okay, so personal statements. Wow.
Yep, we got a whole mountain of them. These have been coming in fast and furious. There's more than we can possibly handle. We cannot promise that we're going to get to everybody's personal statement. Sorry, y'all. And now we're starting to get emails that are like, I really want to apply this week, so can you do my personal? It's like, no, that's not how this works. We're getting to as many of them as we can. You would have had much better chances if you would have submitted in April. But we are putting them all in the queue. The way that you get them to us, by the way, is you go to lsat.link/statement. You have to go through the gauntlet. The gauntlet requires you to acknowledge that you have considered many pieces of existing advice that we've already written and podcasted about. Again, that's lsat.link/statement. That's the only way we're going to accept your personal statements. And we have a whole...
Have these been through the gauntlet? Because I know
not all of them
is new. Okay.
Some of these were on the list for a while before. By the way, this is kind of the problem when people submit multiple drafts. Don't do that, please, if you can avoid it. Send us your one best one.
Again, if you want to submit a statement, go to lsat.link/statement and answer those questions.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Z's personal statement. I'll start.
Go for it.
Oh, wait, I have to put 10 minutes on the clock. That's the most you get. Wait, we decided it's like 8 minutes, huh?
Yeah, maybe we should bump it down to 7.
Let's try 7 minutes.
Okay.
Timer, 7 minutes. Start. I am a PhD student in the philosophy department at Redacted. Don't capitalize philosophy department. When I started to work as a teaching assistant for an ancient philosophy course, most of what I covered in my sections were excerpts from Plato. Why are people so obsessed with when they started their job?
I don't know. Do we have a commandment against that?
Well, I think I was like, stop talking about job interviews and job offers.
This is like almost like a way to work around that. Oh, I won't talk about.
Yeah, but I would get you on a technicality and talk about my training. Well, don't talk about that either. Okay. Anyway, when I started, I was covering Plato. Okay, got it. In these sections, I would help students understand Plato's arguments.
Sorry.
What?
I said, and I don't care. Like I don't know where this is going. So far, 2 sentences in, I'm not excited.
Yeah. In these sections, I would help students understand Plato's arguments, which were built into a Socratic dialogue in terms of a list of premises and a conclusion. What? That's a very strange in terms of.
Yeah.
It's like you're like wanting to tell me that you understand what Socratic dialogue is, but I don't care. Like, are you, I don't know. I wonder if this is like, well, but law school uses the Socratic method. So
I want to show that I'm familiar with it, which unfortunately you'll probably show that you're not, but okay.
I used an online program, vague, for creating decision trees and adapted it for deconstructing arguments in class. That's kind of cool. I guess I would like to, you might as well just name the program that you're using, right? That's a specific detail that could be interesting. If you're going to tell me this story, I would like to know, I guess.
Yeah, or even just talk about creating decision trees and helping people deconstruct arguments in class. I don't know. It depends on where he's going with this.
The students would tell me what they have identified as premises presented in the text, as well as, which you just say, and the students would tell me what they have identified. There's a tense, that's a verb tense problem. I'm losing patience.
Mm-hmm.
What they have identified as premises presented in the text and necessary assumptions for the arguments in the text to work.
Ugh.
Which misunderstands what necessary assumptions do. Necessary assumptions are something that the author must agree with. They're not about making the argument work. But anyway, that's an LSAT teacher aside. But this is sounding like an LSAT teacher, right? Like you want to be LSAT teacher?
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with this.
I have no idea where you're going with it. Yeah. I would then type the student's suggestion in the program, have the student's contribution to the structure of the argument visually represented on the screen, and ask the rest of the class what they thought about this suggestion. I did. Not I would.
Sometimes, yeah. No, I would sometimes have. Yeah.
Just say what you did. I would. This 2 sentences in a row that start with I would. I would sometimes have the students do this work in small groups and then gather back to compare the argument structures they came up with. A frequent homework I assigned. Seems like there's missing words there, right? That's a strange way to use the word homework. A frequent homework I assigned was to convert these structures into the clearest possible prose.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, your prose is not clear. Don't talk about clear prose if your writing is not like clear. This way, the students would be able to see the argument in 3 phases: presented originally, deconstructed into premises and main conclusion, and reconstructed, oh my God, in a straightforward prose, which has the blue squigglies in Google, which is clearly, it's incorrect.
You got to drop the A. Reconstructed in straightforward prose, which you're not giving us. This is not good, Z.
No,
I would probably be done if I were an admissions officer at this point.
I would be done. There are several errors in this one first paragraph. I don't feel like I need to know anything more about, one of the primary things that I'm looking for is your writing. This is meant to be, this is like supposed to be a professional document that you did your best on with unlimited time.
Unlimited time and unlimited external resources. They don't know who you're talking to and getting feedback on this. And boy, you are like, here's the best I can possibly do. And you have mistakes. It's like, well, damn, your best ain't good enough.
Yeah. Clean it up and try again. I really caution people to not mention writing in their own writing.
Yep.
Let your writing speak for itself. The second you start talking about writing, I mean, there are multiple errors in this one first paragraph. I'm done.
Okay. Thanks, Z.
7 minutes for Camila.
Okay. Prior to completing a master's degree in human resources and industrial relations, I served as a legal assistant for an interesting attorney in downtown Chicago's LaSalle Street.
Hey, Camila, don't capitalize human resources and industrial relations. If you're in doubt, just don't capitalize stuff.
I also don't understand the point of any of that phrase. Prior to completing your master's degree in this area, I served as a legal assistant. Just say,
good point.
I served as a legal assistant, or what did you actually do for this, quote, interesting attorney.
Yeah, I
I don't even know
served
what.
as and I worked as are the same thing. It's the both boring because you're not just like getting around to saying what you actually did. And then, sorry, Ben, I stepped on, yeah, an interesting attorney.
My eyebrow raised there. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? And like, this is a professional document. And now I'm like mildly curious what you have to say. She continues, I
Just
use the,
cut that adjective.
just cut it. Yeah, you don't need
Yeah,
it.
if it's so interesting, go ahead and get to why it's interesting. Don't force this conclude. I have no. I am forced. I mean, it's just me, I suppose. But as a skeptic, as a critic, I am forced to go. Oh, really? An attorney that's interesting? Okay. Oh boy, wow! I can't wait to hear about this guy. This is going to be
Yeah.
fascinating.
And it might be interesting in a lot of bad ways, right? Like,
Yeah, right. Interesting is used as an insult half the time.
yeah.
Also, just like, is this going to be, there's far too many of these stories that are like, I met an attorney one time and that's why I want to go to law school. I hope that's not what this turns into.
Also, by the way, this looks like it's fully justified. I don't know if that's from your copy.
That could be a copy paste thing, but that's getting rejected, by the way, these days. I'm sorry to be a dick about it, but we have way too many of these. Like, we cannot get through all of them. And if you send in your shit and it's more than 2 pages, that's an auto not reading it. If you send it in and it's not double spaced, I'm not reading it. If it's full justified, I'm not reading it. You have to follow the rules. Like the Van Halen rider on their rock concert contract. If I see brown M&Ms, goodbye. That's it. Like, you need to follow those instructions, because if you don't follow those instructions, then I know you're not following any of our other instructions. Anyway.
Well, wait, really quick, have we talked about that rider on the show?
I wrote about it last week.
I saw you wrote about it, but just for those of you who are catching up, I had known about that M&M rider for ages. When I was doing legal writing consulting, my boss at the time, Ross Cooperman, told me, we use that as an example for a lot of things. And I always just thought that it was about, asking for something because you could. And then when I realized,
you never got the point of the story.
No, I never got the point of the story. I just thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. Like, I guess they didn't.
Wow, those guys are dicks. They really don't like
they're dicks,
M&Ms.
basically, right? Yeah, well, they're rich. Okay, I get it. But so basically, it was Van Halen, right? So Van Halen said, put M&Ms in our room backstage and make sure there are no brown M&Ms. Sounds like a dick move, but it was actually an easy way for them to see whether their venue had read the contract carefully, because if they failed to do that, then they probably failed to do a bunch of other things, which at the time were very crucial to a successful performance. And then they knew that they either had to fix that,
like they weren't going to have the speakers right, or the monitors right, or the guitars set up in the proper thing, or the mics, or the lights, or the fucking fireworks, or whatever it was, like all the shit that they wanted for their whole bitchin' rock show. And so they said, we want a bowl of M&Ms backstage, and we want all the brown M&Ms removed. And they would walk in, and if they see no M&Ms, they were out. And if they saw a bowl of M&Ms and it had the brown M&Ms, they were out. It was like, goodbye, because we can't trust that you did all the other things we asked you to do. So
how can you do the harder stuff if you can't do this?
Very simple instructions. Yes. So, I mean, I am not Van Halen, but if you would like our help, then these things need to start to be followed, or you're just not going to make it onto the agenda. Anyway, I paused. Camila, I want to give Camila a fair shake. So we paused for our Van Halen discussion.
Okay, so she's working as a legal assistant for this interesting attorney in downtown Chicago.
Great.
She continues, I use the phrase, quote, legal assistant loosely, as that job included tasks that went beyond the scope of traditional legal work, from appearing in court on his behalf to painting the office brown to exude professionalism.
Omit. What do you mean brown exudes professionalism?
So, it's a little bizarre. And also, appearing in court, it sounds like traditional legal work. So I'm confused about how that's outside the scope of traditional legal work. And I'm kind of put off by the fact that you're telling me what falls into traditional legal work, as if you know.
There's just a lot of telling here, period, right? You're telling me that this is an interesting attorney. You're telling me that this is beyond the scope of traditional legal work, which your reader knows more about than you do in most cases. You're telling me that the color brown in an office exudes professionalism.
Sounds like
just a bunch of conclusions. Like, it's a bunch of opinions. Anyway, keep going.
This interesting attorney was my uncle, a brash cowboy boot wearing criminal defense attorney who always encouraged me to pursue the law because I, quote, got the right mind for it.
Omit.
Jeez Louise. I mean, now this undercut, like, I thought at first you had a job with an attorney, and I was like, oh, wow, like you have this experience. And now it's like, oh, it was a job with your uncle. I don't know. You're undercutting your own like points.
Leave your uncle out of it. He's not applying to law school. I'm here to learn about you. I don't give a shit. Really? Your uncle's cowboy boots? Come on. Or cowboy hat? No, cowboy boots. Either way, I don't care. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
I'm here to learn about you. And like the fact also, Ben, that quote,
I got the right mind for it. Yeah, it's just like you're trying to force that onto me. Like, oh, my uncle thinks I'm good for law school, so you will think I'm.
But it's grammatically incorrect, right? Like she's presenting she meant it as like, here's how he speaks. Look, haha, isn't that interesting? He's an attorney who says I got the right mind for it, and it's like, okay, but that makes me not give one fuck what your uncle thinks. It's like, yeah. You choosing to intentionally quote something that is grammatically incorrect in this professional document. It's like, boy, you really think that that's very important because you're going to go ahead and just like blatantly make an intentional grammar mistake. For what purpose?
Well, even just ignoring the grammar, I'm like, what, you're going to like, now you think you're going to convince me that because your uncle thinks you're good at it?
Well, that's the other thing, right? Even the sentiment it's a violation of our commandments, right? Like, I don't want your origin story about you since you were a kid, you liked arguing and everybody told you that you should be an attorney or whatever. I don't care whoever told you that you should be an attorney. I don't want to hear that.
I'm deciding that. His polar opposite, I am hyper rational and thoughtful with a bothersome moral compass. Oh, please. It's just all telling. Like now I have to believe you. Oh, you must be hyper rational. Oh, and you must be thoughtful. And boy, what to add, you're also moral.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
I think this whole first paragraph has to go. This is a super common. Look at the second paragraph. The last 15 out of an 18-year career in HR have been at Intel Corporation, the world's largest semiconductor manufacturing company, which you don't have to tell me what Intel does. But the point is, hey,
it sounds much more professional than
Ben.
Yeah.
This is an adult grown person.
Yeah.
And instead of telling me about working in HR at fucking Intel, which I'm sure is fascinating. I'm sure she has all kinds of amazing big wins that she could have told me. And about her professional career,
law-related issues. HR is filled with that shit.
She went back before Intel, before her master's degree, to waste our time with an entire boring ass first paragraph full of conclusions about shit that happened literally. That was literally 20 years ago.
Look at this. I just skimmed ahead to the third paragraph. I am now responsible for the investigation of statutory complaints raised by and against Intel employees and its contractors. Shit, dude. You could kick everyone's asses, but most people would never even get to this point.
Nope. Yep. Try again, Camila. But you get that first paragraph and your uncle and how you decided to go into HR. Get rid of all that shit and just like start your story today. Start your story with what important work you do right now. I want to know who you are. I don't want to know who you were. And I certainly don't want to know about your uncle. Yeah. I want to know who you are and what you actually do now. And you're just wasting so much time getting there that, boy, if we got a phone call, we just did 7 minutes. Okay. Next. Like, I wouldn't even have gotten to any of this shit about what you actually do in interesting, like modern the modern world. One last thing before we move off of Camila. Look at this first sentence in the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Although it's been many years, I still have the right mind for law school. Cut that shit out of there. Don't tell me things.
Yeah. Stop.
Show me things. Just talk about what you actually do at work. I will make my own conclusions about whether you have the right mind for law school. You obviously think you have the right mind for law school. Otherwise, you wouldn't be applying to law school. And all that is your opinion. And you don't get to tell me that I'm not. You saying that does not make me more likely to believe it.
It has the opposite of the intended effect.
Yes.
It invites us to go, oh, really? Whereas if you didn't say that, we'd probably be thinking that. We'd be like, wow, you work in HR on statutory issues? Sounds like you have the right mind for law school. And then you say it and we're like, haha, really? It's weird.
Okay, next one. Thank you, Camila.
Yeah,
this is Georgios.
Yep.
Recently, I briefed a United States ambassador and his staff, providing updates on the United States Air Force's USAF intelligence support to our partner nation's counterterrorism mission. That's not a good sentence. I think that this topic seems like cool, but
yeah, it seems like a great topic, but it's way too long of a sentence. And it's like,
read that out loud, dude.
Yeah.
Like if this is another thing, like read your statements out loud before you submit them to us. Cause that sentence, what? Just make it shorter. And can we just kind of assume that we don't need these dumb acronyms? I'm scanning down the rest of this and there's like 5 acronyms that are going to be used.
Yeah. Well, look,
that's just like military shit, right?
Yeah. In almost all cases. Okay. You take let's use this as an example. It says United States Air Force. Okay. So the acronym that you gave us is USAF. I get it. But when you ever refer to the United States Air Force again, you could just say Air Force. It's not an acronym and we're not going to be confused about what
you could have said Air Force in the first place. Yeah. I'm going to infer that it's probably the United States Air Force that you're talking about. I mean, and if I wanted to double check, I glance at your resume and I'm going to see United States Air Force. I get it. You already said United States earlier in the same sentence, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that it's anything other than the United States Air Force. Anyway, this is probably going to be an interesting topic. The execution of that first sentence sucks. Fielding questions. I explained how the USAF mission worked to meet the US government's overarching strategic goals in the country. Fielding questions, comma, I explained. Okay. Again, too much US. Look, he said United States twice in the first sentence and US. Then he said US again twice in the second sentence. So he has said United States or US 5 times in 2 sentences.
Oh, too much. Also, I don't like this phrase, overarching strategic goals in the country.
Like
how about
what?
Just the U.S. government's goals in the country or whatever, or a particular goal. It's like, I get it. The big goals. Like, it's just.
Yeah, that's the double adjective, right?
Yeah.
Like, adverbs are obviously, I just said one. Adverbs are just should be omitted. Like and it's kind of clearer. Like it's easier to see why adverbs should be omitted, but adjectives should also be omitted.
Yeah.
Like you can go ahead and write it that way because that's how it comes. That's how it comes to your mind. That's how it comes to your lips. Like that's how you would have said it. Put it out there all on the paper like that. And then when you go through and edit, you got to get rid of the adverbs and adjectives, all like half of them or more. Because you could have just said goals. And I would have thought, oh, probably those are overarching strategic goals. I mean, I just don't need. Yeah. That's
the government's goals in the country. I get it.
What else would they be? Yeah. Okay. When prompted, question mark, or sorry, comma. So this is 2 sentences actually 3 sentences in a row. Look at Georgios's style. Yeah. Every sentence starts with a little preamble. He's just got to have a little preamble. Mm-hmm. Recently, comma. That's the first word. Recently, I briefed. Okay, fine. What?
Why not just about? I recently briefed.
How about I How about this is what I do? How about just sign
Yeah.
a more plain? I don't know.
Or I
But so
brief, yeah, the
yeah,
United States
I
ambassador.
brief this is what I do. Yeah. Fielding questions, comma, at the beginning of the second sentence. When prompted, comma, at the beginning of the third sentence. Like, why are you so afraid to just carry the ball? Like, I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't fielding questions. I
Or
wouldn't
being
have done
prompted.
this if I wasn't
Yeah.
being prompted. What value does that add?
Nothing.
Anyway,
It
when
actually
prompted,
undercuts it because now it
totally.
sounds like you're like a little,
Yeah, it's
you
passive.
know, person sitting there and waiting. Oh,
I'm waiting for
prompted.
them to prompt me. Oh yeah, hi. Yeah, I mean that's obviously not Giorgio's. Giorgio's has no idea that that's how it comes off, but that's how it comes off.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, when prompted, I delivered a technical explanation of how our airborne intelligence assets were able to pass imagery to our partners on the ground at near real-time speeds. This high-level briefing was a highlight of my 8 years serving as a USAF intelligence officer, which you don't capitalize intelligence officer, comma, but not an isolated event. No matter the assignment or deployment, my job has been to manage teams, create analytical products for the intelligence community, parentheses, IC, and act as an executive briefer for military and government senior leadership. I guess, if the phone rings right now, I'm thinking, okay, kind of a clunky writer, but I also am like U.S. Air Force intelligence officer for 8 years. Probably going to be good.
Yeah, which is crazy because this is a story that could be amazing. And if you couple it with excellent writing, you'd turn this statement from, yeah, okay, probably admit, sounds good, to hell yes.
Like
And
call the guy right now
yeah,
and in instant admit him.
yep. And we're going to have FOMO if you go somewhere else. Therefore, we're going to start thinking about scholarships. This is,
Yep.
yeah, we'll admit you don't offer any money because, maybe they'll just come and pay. If you want scholarships, you want people to be excited and feel afraid to lose you.
Yeah. During my first assignment, I supported USAF counter narcotics and counter organized crime missions in South America. I managed a team that tracked and analyzed intelligence assets, activity, and performance throughout the Americas. With our collected data, we produced regular reports measuring our performance and effectiveness. That's the timer. We also created a weekly performance update, blah, blah, blah. I think he should cut that anecdote. Like
I agree. This second paragraph is like how the
way
statement
better
should start, right? Like,
well,
as an intelligence officer, I supported Air Force counter narcotics. Whoa, shit. Okay.
Yeah, right. The big picture of that is so much more interesting than he opens with the first 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences are about this briefing.
I think he was excited. It was like an honor.
It's an ambassador.
Yeah, but who cares?
He's got stars in his eyes about this ambassador, and the reader doesn't give one fuck about that ambassador. The reader's like, who? What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
I am very impressed by your job, but I'm impressed. I want to be impressed by you, not the fact that you briefed an ambassador one time.
Yeah.
So and he goes on to say this briefing was a highlight of my career, but not an isolated event. Well, then why are you talking about that incident as if it's like some big special thing? Like, why are you leading with that? You could lead with all this other shit. I manage a team that tracks and analyzes intelligence activity. I support USAF counter narcotics and counter organized crime missions. Like, holy shit. That's the stuff you should be leading with.
We got another acronym here. Weekly performance update that I briefed to the U.S. Air Force's Southern Commander, AF South. I don't want any more acronyms.
And all the weird caps too on commander and also major general, even though you're not naming that person, which means you probably just don't. In the military, you probably do capitalize that shit, but in writing, don't capitalize all that shit. And you got to cut out. There's another acronym coming in the next paragraph.
Oh, geez. Fusion
Boy.
Intelligence Center. Thick.
Let's get rid of all that shit. Just say the name of it. You're probably not going to refer back to it so many times that you can't just name it. Or you can short title it, right? Like, so for Fusion Intelligence Center, you can probably just call them Fusion later with a capital F, right? That would be fine. You don't have to keep calling them FIC. All right. Thank you, Georgios. 7 minutes for Michael. Oh, this is the second time we have done Michael.
Oh, okay.
You ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, go.
Before I started teaching cadets at West Point, I led a company of 120 soldiers that processed soldier arrivals at Fort Carson.
Okay.
Okay. Again, I don't know why. I almost get like thrown off by this preamble, right? This prelude. Before I started teaching cadets at West Point, I did this other thing. I don't have any frame of reference. So why do I need to, like, I didn't know that you taught cadets at West Point. Why do I need to know that this happened before then?
You could just later on go, now I teach cadets at West Point.
Yeah.
Here's what I do with that.
Yeah.
You could have started with, I led a company of 120 soldiers that processed soldier arrivals at Fort Carson, period.
It's much easier.
Fine.
Right now, totally I'm visualizing two different things, right? It's like, oh, you were teaching, and then all of a sudden we're moving on to this another thing. And it almost buries the fact that you were leading this company.
Yeah.
He continues, we established payroll, housing, and healthcare for 16,000 soldiers during my 2 years of command.
That's amazing.
Cool.
I'm like getting on the phone to hire this guy right now, or to admit him. Yep. It's just like, yep, you're in. I know your LSAT and I know your GPA, presumably.
Yeah.
And if those numbers are close, you're in.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want that to discourage other people. You don't have to have led a company of 120 soldiers doing all of this shit for 16,000 soldiers. You don't have to have facts that are that big. But the point I'm really trying to make is that Michael made a smart choice here to lead with the biggest facts he's got.
And notice all he's done is said what he did. He hasn't said, I have the skills.
I learned that, yeah. We faced many difficult challenges along the way. And I utilized skills that will translate to the practice of law. Like, yeah, no, it's just like, well, I did lead a company of 120 soldiers and we did do all this shit for 16,000 people.
Also notice there are no titles here. So Michael hasn't given us his title, which is just,
I worked as and then like a 5-word title with an acronym. He could have done that, right? And instead he's just like, this is what I do. You don't need to know my title. If you want to look it up, it's on my resume.
It's not like Jeff Bezos goes around saying, oh, I start big companies, or, I'm a CEO. It's just like, I'm Jeff Bezos. It took 8 days to process new arrivals. Soldiers sat through briefings, waited in lines, and hand completed 25 onboarding documents.
Okay. I'm more interested in what you do, but all right.
Yeah. These last two sentences have been about the process and about soldiers. I asked soldiers how we could improve. Soldiers wanted faster travel pay entitlements. They wanted training and deployment schedules for their gaining units. I created an online survey and posted QR codes around the building, resulting in thousands of comments.
Wow.
They wanted shorter wait times. Senior leaders wanted to proceed to their units and begin their jobs faster.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the point is he doesn't hit his point hard enough.
Yeah.
He casually says it took 8 days to process new arrivals. And then he goes into this whole paragraph about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, he didn't make it clear that 8 days is
long,
is
right?
a problem. I have to like infer that that's what he's trying to say. I feel like Well, that's an
Yeah.
example of where like one adjective could have done some work, right?
Or maybe not even an adjective. Check this out. So at the beginning of his statement, he said, "Before I started teaching cadets at West Point." I don't care about that reference
No,
point
cut
because
that.
I'm totally lost. But
Yep.
here we could use it. So it could say, "We already know that you led a company of 120 soldiers, right? So now I have a reference point, and you could say, when I started, comma, it took 8 days to
Right.
process new arrivals." All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, wait, when you started, it was like this. I'm already anticipating you talking about how
Oh, you're going to fix this problem.
you're going to fix this. And
That's
now it's
awesome.
shorter.
Yep.
Okay. And you don't even have to say like it was too long or it took too long, right? You don't have to force that conclusion on me. I just like, oh, when you started, it was this, and now it's this.
Yeah.
Next paragraph. After meeting with all the civilian managers involved with the process, okay, you can cut the involved with the process. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to transform an afternoon of informational briefs into an interactive resource fair. Okay. I added Army Community Services, military family life counseling, and other nonprofits and businesses that support military life. I directed club representatives to replace PowerPoints with sign-up sheets. I coordinated with the Army Spouse Club and Child Development Centers so new families could attend and tour Fort Carson.
Okay, cool.
I like a lot of this. By the way, we're getting more into the weeds, I think, with Michael because it's so good. But I don't love these sentences. I decided.
That's a mental state. I mean, just
It's a
say what you
mental
did.
state. Yeah, just
Yeah.
say, after this, I don't even know if I would say that. You could say I met with the civilian managers and then period. And then you could say to do X.
Well, he could have used, he could have just said transformed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went with I decided to transform. Transform could have done all the heavy lifting there. It's a very vibrant, like active verb. You could have just said I transformed.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
I resolved a monthly backlog of 200 soldiers. Since the maximum throughput, 50 soldiers per day, already stressed support agencies, I decided to manage which soldiers made the roster each day.
Again, I decided.
Yep. That's the time. By the way, there's a lot of I sentences in here, which is good, Michael, but I'm kind of looking for more we sentences because you're a leader and you're talking so much about what you did. It actually has me visualizing you as this one-man shop. I kind of want to see I mixed in with we so that I can
you
imagine.
Could say my team.
Yeah.
You could
so
say
that I can
my
imagine
command.
you directing them, right? As opposed to just running around, putting up the QR codes.
But, erring on the side of using I as the subject of your sentences is very strong. It's clear, it's well written, it's presenting lots of positive facts in Michael's favor.
Yeah.
This would be a clear admit. We can always make it better, but this is a winner.
Yep.
Look at the end.
Incoming soldier satisfaction at Fort Carson went from 7.2 to 9.2 out of 10 during my command. At West Point, I challenged my cadets to prioritize their soldiers regardless of their mission or task. I will provide the same diligence to my future clients as a lawyer. I look forward to studying the legal side of federal litigation.
That's great, right? Like it's fine. You don't necessarily need both of those closing sentences.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that very last sentence, maybe just cut it.
Yep.
But overall, this is like a 9.2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is pretty damn good. This is strong. I like the just one sentence closing. Like he's scoring points all the way to the end. Great job, Michael. That's awesome. That's a winner. That's one of the better ones we've seen. Notice that it's just like plain spoken, straightforward, presents fact after fact after fact after fact that are in your favor. It's basically chronological. It doesn't have a whole bunch of bullshit conclusions. It just has good facts for you. And the reader goes, oh, this guy's done a lot of cool shit and I can understand the writing. That's like, it's just no brainer. That's a slam dunk. You're in.
Oh, you know what? Here he does have some we sentences.
That's good. Mixing
Yeah.
in a few of those is definitely good. Oh yeah, I see those.
Let me read this one paragraph. Okay.
Okay.
I developed an executive process for senior leaders, period. I learned basic programming from Microsoft Access database and used it to build a new digital intake form, period. Each day we generated and disseminated a report to our counterparts to inform their processing, period. We sent the executives to their jobs on their first day, accomplishing in 3 hours what used to take 3 days, period. Bam. These are just like fact. It's
period, paragraph break. I love
Yeah.
that Michael is using a damn period sometimes. That's great. Many of you do not use periods nearly enough. You've got colons and semicolons and dashes and commas and all this fancy bullshit, and your sentences are way too long and really hard to read.
Yeah.
And Michael's just going with short, clear, direct, period, start a new thought, period, start a new thought, paragraph break, start a whole new thing. It's just it's beautiful. Like, it's probably written, if you those things that like tell you what grade level it's written at.
Yeah.
And it was probably like, oh, this is like written at a 3rd grade level or something, but that's good.
Yeah.
Like, if a 3rd grader would be able to get something out of this, that's good.
Yeah.
Because it just means that all your readers are going to clearly understand the facts that you're trying to convey. And the point is to convey the facts. If you're writing clearly, then you're conveying the facts, and the facts are scoring points on your behalf.
Yeah. Well, you're really doing 2 things at once. You're scoring those points via those facts, and whether people, in the back of their minds, they're thinking, wow, this guy is a good writer.
Right. That's the thing. If it's easy to read, then we think you're a good writer. I want to go back 2 statements previous to think about Camila's personal statement.
Yeah.
She opened with this flowery, fancy thing about her uncle with the cowboy boots, and we didn't get to it, but she returned to the cowboy boots in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like she wanted to show off this artistic metaphor that she's able to present this thing and like have a theme and have a whatever. And it's like, all you're doing is making it harder to understand and wasting my time.
You're not drawing attention to the writing.
Right. I am here to figure out if you're a good writer, but you writing as hard as you can is not helping. Like, it's not. I want the writing to just disappear because I'm going to be getting it. I'm going to be getting the facts about you. And if I just get all the facts about you and it's clear, then I'm going to go, oh, wow, also a good writer.
Yep.
That shouldn't be the first thing. It shouldn't be like showing off about, because when you show off, all it does is you just start to see all the cracks in the foundation anyway. Nobody's as good of a writer as they think they are, including me. Right. When I like get fancy and start showing off, well, then it becomes muddy and unclear. That's what editors are for. Thank God.
Yeah.
Ready for Brittany from Tennessee?
Yeah, let's do it.
I put a little paragraph in here just because, well, Brittany says, I wrote to you back in the spring when LSAC changed their testing window. When you discussed my email on the podcast, you recommended not waiting out the wait list. I took your advice, and I am in the process of reapplying right now. That's excellent. She was waitlisted in the spring, and she was just like, nope, fuck that. I'm not trying to get in off the wait list.
Yep. Good.
I want a scholarship. I'm going to reapply. After listening to all the podcasts on personal statements over the past month, I decided my statement was terrible and broke all your rules. As I've been listening to the podcast, I've made a do's and don'ts list to remember as I write. I'm hoping I didn't violate any of your suggestions. I've already ran it through Grammarly. She asks, it is short and to the point, but is it too bland? Should I add a more personal story?
Okay.
Have you ever said too bland. Has that ever been a thing where you've gone, it's just bland?
Yeah, we did have one guy. You remember the guy who was talking about being a teacher in COVID?
Oh, well, the very mundane.
I went to school. I sent
Yeah,
the kids home from school.
I think that was just didn't choose interesting enough facts to convey. Right. Those
Yeah.
were like very obvious facts about every school teacher.
Yeah.
I suppose that one was bland. Well, and
But it's
Brittany is a
rare, right?
teacher. So here we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh-oh.
I think it's on you. Is it? No, maybe it's me.
No, I just read. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. 7 minutes for Brittany. I am a second grade teacher in the third largest district in Tennessee and a small business owner. I feel like you should pick one of those things to tell me. What am I going to hear? Am I going to hear one? Am I going to hear about the teaching? Am I going to hear about the business? I maybe just say one of them. I have increased reading fluency test scores in my second grade classes for 7 consecutive years. That's a point in your favor. I like that. It's like a minor point, but it's okay. It's get 1 point for that.
Yep. I agree.
I have lead. Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
I have lead sessions for my fellow teachers in professional development communities.
I think you meant lead.
I'm very surprised that Grammarly didn't catch that. Okay, second paragraph. Right away, it's like it's just, boy, that type of problem is like such a big problem. Either you read it 10 times and didn't catch it, which is a problem,
Or you don't know.
or you read it once and didn't catch it, which is also a problem. Like it's either a lack of attention or it's like not actually understanding that word needs to be led, LED. It's a small thing,
you
but
just
it's a
talked
big
about
thing.
reading fluency, which is
close to writing. Yeah. Okay. And that's the first paragraph. Second paragraph. In fall of 2020, or sorry, it just says in fall 2020, comma. Wouldn't there be fall of 2020 or in the fall of 2020? I don't know. That's just a little weird.
I've seen both. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, who cares, right? Like that's one of those things where it's like everybody is always talking about days, weeks, months, seasons, years, even times of day. And none of those things ever move your story at all.
Yeah. Like I could see 2020 because
in 2020, I taught
it's
all my second.
relevant for COVID, right?
Okay, good. So cut fall.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have also said in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have said last year, or we get it. Like we definitely understand why you're teaching your second graders virtually.
Yeah.
I worked with my team to create and establish a virtual classroom. I integrated many virtual sites and resources into my online class to help my 7-year-old students learn during this difficult time. I don't like the many virtual sites and resources. Cut the many there. Right? If you're going to say, I integrated sites and resources, just say that. We get it that it was many. Like what value does that adjective have? The first week, I determined I needed to create a simple color and shape-based platform for students to navigate. I think, don't you need to say during the first week?
Yeah, or something.
Not just the first week.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, many of my students did not have assistance and were unable to read. During the first 2 weeks of school, I taught students the basics of working on their personal computers, as many had never used a Chromebook before. While this was a unique school year, I raised many students' reading levels from below grade proficiency, comma, at the 5th percentile, dash and below, hyphen and below. Is that just an extra, just sloppy? It just looks like a sloppy keystroke, like a no reason to be there.
Yeah.
To above grade level proficiency, the 50th percentile. To obtain these results, never say obtain. You could say get. To obtain these results, I taught small group interventions to target specific skills for each student. It's kind of vague. Multiple times a week, students recorded themselves practicing their reading fluency and uploading to hear their progress. Using these recordings, I was able to personalize each student's goals. There's some good stuff there.
Yeah,
I am getting a picture of what Brittany does.
I am. I wish it were a little tighter. Oddly, Brittany, you were worried about it being too short. I would like to get through this a little faster, and I'd like you to clean it up so that your writing is stronger.
She says she ran it through Grammarly, but there's been like already, like 5 things that where we raised an eyebrow.
Yeah.
Which means there's probably more that we didn't even catch or didn't even think about.
Well, and she has the extra problem. She's talking about reading, which isn't writing, but it's
she's a teacher. She's a school teacher, and then she's making errors in her own shit. It's like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
Actually, halfway through. I mean, I think she does need to. She needs to write. She needs to find some other shit to talk about because we're halfway through. During this time, I became a leader on the technology team to troubleshoot problems within my building. I taught other teachers about numerous virtual platforms. So earlier it was many virtual something, and now it's numerous.
Yeah, Brittany, what you're trying to do is you're trying to like sell. You're like, look how
overselling
much I did. But the problem is now you raise the bar. And so why not just say you told them about virtual platforms? Now we don't have to like feel like you're forcing it on us.
The sessions on programs and demonstrated how to teach students to use those programs. Kind of clunky with programs twice. Notice there that she uses lead correctly instead of lead like she did in the first paragraph. On top of being an educator, I am the owner of a small business specializing in custom shirts and decals. Throughout the past year, I changed my marketing strategy and overall shop appearance. I posed items with additional articles of clothing to make them more presentable and appealing to customers. In a short time, my sales nearly doubled. Currently, I have made over 2,000 sales with over $33,000 in revenue. I am a star seller on Etsy. You don't need quotation marks around that. If you're going to capitalize it, that's a proper noun. You don't need to quote it for no reason. Says it again. To become a star seller, I have maintained 100% in 5-star ratings, a 100% prompt response rate, and 97% in shipping and delivery on time. I like this stuff better. In addition to Etsy, I sell my products at a variety of craft fairs. Brittany, just craft fairs. I have increased not only my Etsy sales, but my local sales and recognition through these events. I create and produce many products for businesses. Just say I create and produce products for businesses. Oh boy, immunity regularly. Cut regularly. Brittany, you got to get rid of these adjectives and verbs. You got to stop it. Just say we understand that it's more than one product. We understand that you do this regularly. You don't need to say regularly. I have made nearly $5,000 sales and period. And that's how it ends. She's got to write more. This is too short.
Yeah, I would, if she does, I think that the teacher thing could work since it's obviously a big part of her resume too, because she's a teacher. And I think it's kind of cool. Like helping kids improve their reading scores is not easy.
Yeah.
And so I think that could be tighter. It could be shorter. She could say more about this Etsy thing. There is part of me that is wondering like, okay, why are you applying to law school? So she might be one of those people who needs like a sentence or two. I guess.
Well, especially the space. I would absolutely like to see, and it does just drop the mic. I have made nearly $5.
Peace.
And it's like, and it's gone, and it's like, well, okay, but what? Like, yeah, 2-sentence, like a new paragraph, 1 or 2 sentences about what you think you want to do in law would definitely then I would not think it's an application to business. I would understand that it's an application to law school.
Yeah.
I like all these facts about the Etsy stuff. I think that that's all cool. I do think that she needs to maybe expand a little bit more and tighten up the grammar and the writing. Ready for Michael part 2? Another
Yeah.
Michael? Go for it. 7 minutes.
I sold software and technology solutions to businesses. I hunted for new business daily by calling companies and meeting with C-level executives and key decision makers.
Cut daily.
I called to set up meetings to help companies be more productive and efficient while finding additional revenue sources.
Well, it's just strange to me that the first 3 sentences here are past tense. I sold software analogy solutions to businesses, period, is the first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, well, what do you do now?
Yeah. Do you do it
Or
now?
like, when was this? Why isn't that sell and hunt and call? I don't know.
If you're
Keep
going to
going.
say, yeah, if I say I sold, I hunted, I would probably, in this case, want a little bit of context. Like 3 years ago, comma, at the very beginning, right? Like it seems, where are you? Or when was this? The solutions included mobile devices, voice over internet protocol phones or VoIP, network security, remote device monitoring, GPS asset, and location tracking. I'm not sure where you're going with that. That's not about you.
I think you can, if you're going to use GPS without saying global positioning systems, I think you could also do the same thing with VoIP.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm also like wondering what
why do I care about this list of technological
all of a sudden
bullshit?
I feel like, I think at this point, so given your lack of context as an admissions officer, I'm kind of like, where are you going with this? You sold software. Often many businesses had the misconception that something was redacted, was just a cell phone company. Okay, that your company was just a cell phone company and would quickly dismiss my call, thinking I couldn't help them. That was a challenge since I had to clear up that misconception quickly. We don't need to be told that it was a challenge.
And you also don't need to say misconception 2 sentences in a row.
Yeah. I did this by building rapport with the gatekeeper who often gave out a contact name or email address.
Stop saying often. Look at it's the first word of that previous sentence. Often, many businesses had the misconception. Why don't you just say many businesses had the misconception?
Yeah. Actually, often and many mean the same thing.
Right.
Okay. In my first month out of training, I met with the owner of a landscaping company. I discovered he was having issues with employee productivity since employees were showing up late to jobs, affecting their company's reputation. I proposed a GPS tracking solution to remedy that issue by allowing him to monitor driver location remotely in real time and confirm that employees were on the job. I love this much more than I'm not saying I love it, but I like it a lot more than the first paragraph. I feel it's just more like I can visualize it. Your first paragraph is all about you like grinding away at calling people. I don't know. I don't really
Can we
care
cut out landscaping? Does it have to be a landscaping company?
Yeah.
Because I gotta tell you, like, this to me looks like a white dude putting GPS on a non-white workers' cars to make sure that they're going to their jobs.
Yeah, that's what it does sound like. Yep.
And I don't know that that's the greatest look. Like, it just, to me, that's just a little cringy. Just giving you my gut reaction. I mean, it's probably like what I just said is like racist, like discriminatory. I'm stereotyping, whatever. But I'm also probably right. And I just I would steer clear of that area is what I'm saying.
Well, it doesn't really matter whether you're right or wrong. It's how it looks to the reader. And that's
right.
A very likely impression they may or may not get.
Right.
I proposed, okay, so wait, hold on. I also integrated time card check-in and out. Check-in and out. That's weird with that hyphen, by the way. Making it easy to track employee hours worked for payroll purposes.
For payroll purposes.
I also discovered he was using an old-fashioned way of issuing quotes and invoices.
An old-fashioned way.
I helped him automate them by creating digital forms, which allowed him to attach photos and timestamp them. You could just cut the I discovered sentence entirely.
Mm-hmm.
That resulted in a large scale of 40 in a large that resulted in a large scale sale of 40 GPS tracking units along with additional software revenue making I think you mean an M dash, making me the sales leader for that month.
I'm losing patience.
Yeah.
The editing is poor. It looks sloppy. That dash there, yeah, should be an M dash. I don't want him to tell me that this was a large scale sale of 40 GPS. You're going to say the number, then say the number. Don't also force me to believe that this is a large scale thing, especially if you're going to say that then, that which is a fact that you're the sales leader for the month. I don't just large scale can be cut.
This is the next paragraph. I worked with the vice president, VP.
Oh, Jesus. Really? Come on.
What's with everybody in their acronyms? I feel
I
like
don't
we
know.
shat on them
Stop
enough.
it. Get rid of these dumb acronyms or just say them like GPS. You can just say that. But what VP? Where did it? Oh, and later you go the VP's biggest concern.
Even then, we know who the VP is.
Well, it's kind of weirdly casual to do that.
Yeah.
The VP's biggest concern. You could have just said the vice president's biggest concern
then,
or her biggest concern or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is reminding me of the man with kind eyes. It's like Chinese characters almost are showing up in these personal statements.
Oh, all the acronyms.
Yeah.
There we go. We made it like halfway through. If we got interrupted by a phone call, we would be like, sales guy sells GPS things. I don't know. Any closing remarks about this one?
I don't know. Something about it just seems like it needs to be tightened up, I guess.
The editing is bad. I mean, yeah, the form, the style, the it's not very well presented.
Yeah.
The facts themselves seem like there is certainly something here.
Okay.
It's giving me bad vibes for some reason. I don't know. I could just be that GPS tracking thing. Just is a little. Don't love that part.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. 7 minutes for A.
Yep.
In the summer of 2020, I don't care. I discovered several procedural and technological gaps that posed financial and regulatory risk to my organization. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what your organization is. I don't know what kind of gaps you're talking about. It's too high level.
Yeah.
I have no idea who you are. You could be a cashier or you could be the CFO.
Yeah, it's interesting. People have heard us say over and over, start your statement with I and then verb. So A, you've done that. You said I, and
but
you said
I discovered, which is like a mental state thing.
Yeah. We need more.
I'd be better off just starting with this next sentence.
Okay.
As a full-time cyber risk manager, I often stop saying often. Can we just don't say often and don't say many. Say what you do.
Yep.
Cut the adjectives. Anyway, as a full-time cyber risk manager, I often analyzed data sets, assisted in negotiating contract language with vendors, and implemented policy and procedure to ensure the efficacy of risk controls. Combing through data reports was a common practice, However, as I scrutinized one such report more closely, I found myself skeptical of the results. A lot of combing through data, right? She already said I often analyzed data sets.
Yeah.
And now we're combing through data reports was a common practice. And now we get to like the anecdote that apparently we're supposed to be learning about, which is one of these reports looks a little funky. I don't like that list that, when I started saying comma after the things, it's like, well, that's because it's just kind of like an annoyingly long list of things that I don't understand. And I'm just like trying to slog my way through the sentence.
Yeah.
The semicolon, that's my new thing. I'm going to say semicolon out loud every time I see a semicolon.
Fair with me.
It doesn't need to be there. It could be a period and a new sentence.
Yep.
The information conveyed in the report was meant to inform senior leaders which vendors presented the most risk and what cyber events contributed to their ratings. I dug into the underlying information and recognized several data sets were both incomplete and erroneous. A quibble about erroneous there. Are you saying that the data set itself is erroneous? Because that's what you said. I think you meant error filled or something like that. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
After realizing the potential ramifications of a more widespread issue, there's a mental state reference there that just does not need to happen.
Well, there's lots of mental states in this, right? I dug into the underlying information and recognized something. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, earlier I found myself skeptical of the results.
Yeah.
So it's like
in your head shit.
Well, it's almost every sentence.
Mm-hmm.
She discovered in the first sentence, she's skeptical in the third sentence. She recognized in the fifth sentence. She realizes in the sixth sentence. Anyway, after realizing these potential ramifications of a more widespread issue, I performed a thorough audit of the system's data feeds and procedural materials. Subsequently, I discovered the tools which monitored and synthesized cyber intelligence on the bank's third-party business contacts were widely affected. You could have just said the bank's third-party business contacts were widely affected, right?
Yep.
Instead, it's all this. I discovered the tools which monitored and synthesized cyber intelligence. What? My findings revealed that they were collecting partial data, reporting them incorrectly, and ultimately presenting an inaccurate picture of enterprise risk to internal teams and regulators. Because of the faulty information presented in the reporting, new business engagements were wrongly passed over and internal resources allocated towards addressing perceived risks were wasted. I got to tell you, you need to use shorter sentences. That's just step one. You got to stop it with the commas and the lists and the ands and the preambles. Just shorter sentences. Really read. As a result of these findings, I was tasked with assembling a team to systematically mitigate or eliminate the identified gaps before they manifested into damages.
Jeez Louise. Like, okay, first of all, this is an origin story. You were tasked with something. You were asked to do something. This is when you.
Well, I'm confused because I thought she discovered it. But then she's tasked with assembling a team to systematically, which is very annoying, systematically. Just say mitigate.
And then mitigate or eliminate. Like,
just say mitigate.
Just choose one.
Or pick eliminate. Yeah, it's just so wordy.
So this
wordy.
is
That's what I would
adverbs.
write. I would take my red pen and this whole first paragraph, I would just put wordy.
Too many words.
Too many words per sentence. Too many sentences in that paragraph.
Paragraph is long.
That's
too many mental
paragraph
states
of long sentences. Yeah.
Too many adjectives. See, here's the great thing about cutting out adjectives and adverbs is then they tighten up your writing.
Yeah, it doesn't change the meaning of the sentence. It just makes the sentence easier to read so I can tell what the fuck you're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Like my takeaway from this is like probably does pretty cool shit, but you're not helping me understand what you actually do. Like I know
Yep.
you're combing through some data sets and it seems like big business, but
Oh
other than
no.
that, boy, like can you explain anything more about what A is actually doing?
Nope.
Ben's highlighted in the Google Doc that we share. Ben has highlighted an acronym that appears in the next
Well,
paragraph.
the funny thing is, okay, so I'm taking notes on all the commandments that are being violated so we can recap them at the end and maybe
Oh,
get
good.
some new ones out of here. But
Oh, good.
like it's like once I have a commandment listed here, I'm putting in the examples, and by God, they just keep coming up over and over again. Like this next sentence, right? At the time, I was simultaneously working. Like another adverb. You don't need it.
We don't have a commandment that says cut adjectives and adverbs, do we?
I don't think that we do, but I have a list here. We can talk about them at the end. But yeah,
Okay.
that might be a candidate.
Yeah. Well, we've said this a million times. Search for ly space. Just look for ly space in your document. I'm glancing up above. I see widely affected. It's like,
Ultimately.
okay, sometimes you do want it. Oh yeah, ultimately presenting and just presenting an inaccurate picture, not ultimately presenting an inaccurate. It just, again, that's how it comes out. When I write, that's how it comes out. It's like I literally write it on the page and then I go back and I cut out literally.
Yep. Yep.
It's just, you don't need that shit. That is how we speak, but we don't need to.
Yeah.
I mean, or we don't need to edit. We do need to edit that out of the final work product. Cybersecurity is a super huge big deal. So I'm sure that A could write on this topic and it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Final sentence. With a legal education, I intend. Oh, what? Ew.
What?
With a legal education, I intend on advancing my skills to protect clients from cybersecurity risks. So the thing I'm pissed off about, obviously, is the incorrect preposition.
Yep.
You don't intend on, you intend
to advance. Yep.
Intend on advancing. No, you intend to advance.
Yep.
I don't like, also this long, again, she like closes with a long ass list.
Like she wants to do everything on the planet. Like defend economic and national security interests. That alone could take a lifetime.
That's a little grandiose. That's true.
Yeah. Pursue those who perpetuate
malicious cyber acts. I would cut that. Sorry, we're kind of clowning on that. I mean, it is goofy. I would take that last sentence and I would say, with a legal education, I intend to advance my skills to protect clients from cybersecurity risks, period.
Boom.
We don't need this other shit. It's grandiose to say that you're going to defend economic and national security interests. I mean, maybe you are, but if that's what you want to do, then don't say the first thing. Say that instead. And your piece better have you doing like national security shit, which maybe you do have. We didn't quite get there because that long ass, real vague first sentence with so many way long sentences and way long lists, like nobody's going to get through that to the actual interesting stuff.
By the way, as an example of how you can cut and cut and cut, you just cut off the last two items of her long ass last sentence, right?
Yeah.
So with a legal education, I intend to advance my skills to protect clients from cybersecurity risks, period. 100 times better than before. But we can keep going. Maybe with a legal education, I intend to protect clients from cybersecurity risks, period. Like, I don't need to know that you're going to be advancing your skills. That's inherent in going to school.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So
I would
just
cut
like
that as well.
We cut and then we cut again and we cut again. So if you're writing these personal statements, if you're writing your personal statement and then you edit it once, going through and looking for things to cut, which is, by the way, all the power to you, because most people apparently are not doing that at all. You can probably do it another 5 or 6 times. I mean, I do it all the time when we write explanations for the demon or whatever. It's like you write it and you write it and then you're editing and you're editing and you're editing and you're editing. That's what a perfect document takes.
Yeah, you need to write it longer and then boil it way down. It's the exact opposite. I mean, if you think about what school does when they're teaching people to write,
Yeah, it's a bummer. You have to
well,
get to 3 pages.
it's
My
got a
son deals with this
minimum of
problem all
three
the time.
pages. And it's
Yeah.
like, wait, that shouldn't be the assignment. The assignment should be have a fucking point, make your point.
No, yeah, it sucks, man. Like when my son is writing essays, he's like, "Oh, I'm almost done. I just need to get another paragraph." And then and then I'm like,
Just,
this is bullshit. You're kind of repeating yourself from before. And he's like, well, he's like,
I got to
oh,
do another
okay.
paragraph. I just got to
Oh, okay,
stretch it
dad.
out as long. I got to get to that minimum.
He's like, he doesn't want me to edit his stuff. He's like, dad, you're just going to like cut it all out. And
Then I'll have
it's like,
half the assignment.
yeah. Like, well, you didn't, this is all you said really. So
You edit his whole shit to one sentence. Sorry, buddy. That's all you got.
he's like, now I'm going to get a bad grade.
Probably is too. All right. Hey, look, it's Vlad from the top of the
Hey,
show.
Vlad. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. Vlad, who has a 26-point improvement on his LSAT score. You ready? 7 minutes for Vlad.
Sure. Okay. I'm the only paralegal at a small size law firm.
Boo.
I don't
Boo. Vlad. What?
small size. Sorry, man. You don't need to say small size, let alone small.
Well, you can just say at a small law firm. That's fine.
Well, why not just say I'm a paralegal? I don't know. I don't know that this is necessary.
I'm the only paralegal at my firm.
Yeah. That might imply it's small, right?
Or just I'm the only paralegal at a small firm. That's fine. I get it. But I'm the only paralegal at a small size law firm. Really annoying.
By the way, has the blue underlining on it.
Right. Google is catching it. So we shouldn't be talking about it. But anyway. All right. Go ahead.
We specialize in both plaintiffs and defense civil litigation. I'm actually mildly confused by that.
I think that's an error. I don't think that that's grammatically correct. I think that there needs to be an apostrophe on plaintiffs.
And then defendants to be parallel.
How about we specialize in litigation, period.
We specialize in civil litigation. Thank you. Working under the supervision of 4 attorneys, presumably that would be the case, I conduct trademark and business research, analyze and draft responses to office actions, file legal documents in state and federal courts, draft notices, discovery motions, and conduct legal research.
Error.
Yeah, there's an error there. You have like a list of items and then you oddly like start a new list at the very
Ben,
end.
I think you don't get 7 minutes when you make multiple errors in the first paragraph.
I think that's true.
Vlad, you're done. We love you. Thank you for improving your LSAT score by 26 points and being a fan of the show and a fan of the LSAT Demon and all that shit. But this statement is, I don't have any more time for this one. Sorry. Resubmit.
Oh, by the way, Vlad, you said in your last paragraph, working as a paralegal, I discovered a passion for civil litigation.
Goodbye. Vlad.
We banned that term.
Try harder. You need to follow our advice. You need to edit your shit. You need to tighten that up. I'm not reading shit that has multiple errors in the first paragraph. I'm not doing it. You're going to be a lawyer. You got to start acting like one. Just don't submit shitty drafts. I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to big time you or anything. You're going to get more out of what Ben and I have to offer if you put more into it in the first place. Those brown M&Ms got to fucking go. Ready for Patricia?
Let's do it.
7 minutes. I think you should go since we had an abortion on Vlad.
Sure. I'm a professional choral conductor. Shit. Okay, that's a good first sentence. I specialize in conducting men's choruses. There are fewer than 10 women in the United States conducting men's choruses at Division I universities, and I am one them.
Oh, God. One typo, Patricia. Okay.
Yeah,
you're on thin ice
too, because everything else is so good here. I mean, I
This is
don't.
a resubmit, by the way. She had
Mm,
submitted it previously and she said there are less than 10 women in the United States. And I sent it back and I said, you meant fewer. Also, there were a couple other things. And I was like, fix that shit. Try again. And she did. But I mean, boy, we've got a blue squiggle on the second sentence.
you meant to say I am one of them. Also, the number 10, I would write that out. So there are
Well,
fewer than 10.
and I gave her this feedback, which she did not accept, which is
Oh,
fine because I
okay.
can be wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
But I gave her the feedback. If you're going to say fewer than 10,
Why not just say the actual number?
that's what I said.
Yeah.
She did not take that tip.
Oddly
Okay.
specific, but not specific.
Well, if it's 8, then say fucking 8.
There are 8 women in the United States. Yeah.
That's fewer words, Patricia. Why are you going out of your way to say fewer than 10? No matter what that number is, I'm meant to presume that it's impressive because it's a small number. Am I not? So then why are you going out of your way to say fewer than 10 when you could have just said the smaller number,
which would be even smaller than 10.
which is 7 or whatever it is? Or oddly, you don't know how many there are, which can't possibly be correct if you're making that claim. I don't know. That strikes me as strange, but anyway, the facts are incredible, like just incredible. The first sentence is very strong. The fact that there are 7 women in the United States conducting men's courses at D1 universities, and you're one of them. That's awesome. That's amazing. These facts are awesome.
If I were to tighten this up even more, I might consider, I'm on the fence about this, but instead of I specialize in conducting men's courses, I might just say I conduct men's courses. But
yeah, totally. I conduct men's course, or just cut that sentence entirely. I am a professional choral conductor. There are fewer than 10 women. Or wait, no, we're going to edit that for her. I'm a professional choral conductor, period. There are 7 women in the United States conducting men's courses at Division I universities, and I am one of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should cut it because that last sentence is saying the same thing.
Exactly.
And this is a perfect example of why cutting takes time, because you're afraid to let go of things that you've put in there, but then you're like, wait, actually, I don't need that. And I don't need that. And so on.
Right.
She continues, every 2 years, choral conductors from around the world, but primarily the United States.
Don't say that.
Unnecessary. Come together for the National Convention of the American Choral Directors Association. The convention consists of concerts of invited choirs, interest sessions, and reading sessions.
Sessions. A lot of sessions.
Yeah. Also, you're missing the Oxford comma there.
Yeah.
Right now, we're talking about the choral conductors and the convention. I want to know about you sooner.
Yeah, you could probably just cut this sentence because you could get right into, if there is a interest session that you do something in, you could just start telling us about that. Or if there is a reading session that you do something in, you could start telling us about that.
Yeah, exactly.
All this background, I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to this thing. So
there's another sentence, and it's about the reading sessions. It says reading sessions consist of music chosen by a committee to introduce to the members of the association in attendance to program for future concerts.
Very clunky.
Yeah.
Also just unnecessary.
Unnecessary. As the founding conductor of the University of Louisville's premier men's chorus, the Singing Cardsmen, I attend the tenor bass men's chorus reading session. I don't love the / usage there.
Tenor dash bass / men's is all one thing.
Yeah, that's weird. And
you
also,
can change that, but yeah.
I don't love the verb here, Patricia. Attended. I mean, a lot of people can attend things. The cisgender male banter. I'm not familiar with that term. What does that mean?
Straight, or like typically male, like born male, cisgen, like whatever. It's meant as like an insult in progressive circles, kind of like it's just like it's very. She's going out of her way here to like say this is a male. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You should just be, you know what it is? It's just negative. It's just, you're being negative. Be
Yeah.
positive. Talk about the good. The
Yep.
fact that you are one of very few women who do what you do is good. You then bitching about the cisgender male banter that dominated much of the conversation, I cut that. It's just
Yeah.
you're whining and complaining.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Even if it's true, it doesn't matter. Like, why? Okay, you want to focus on that? You can
I'm
focus
a
on a bunch of
thousand
things that could have
percent.
happened. Yeah.
I'm 1,000% sure that it is 1,000% true. Okay. Nobody wants straight white men like me to shut up more than I do. But I just don't want to hear you like you're supposed to be putting your best foot forward. You're supposed to be making yourself look like a winner and like a positive contributor to wherever you are.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to go out of your way to take shots at your own shit. Like she's literally just complaining about her own. I thought she was going to tell me that she does something super cool at this convention. And
Yep.
instead, she's just like, well, there's so many men and they just are doing their typical talking about golf. You know, it's like, yeah, I know. But what did you do?
Yeah.
How about this last sentence of this paragraph?
There were few female choir directors present. I think we kind of got that from the beginning.
Of course, because you're at the men's chorus, the tenor bass men's chorus reading session, and there's very few women who conduct these choruses. So of course there weren't that many female choral directors present because they don't exist in this world. But what's your point? Because you got to take action, like do something. Let's go a little more. I feel like we took a couple diversions and we can give Patricia a little more time here.
Okay, next paragraph, which is one sentence. Conducting the singing cardsman would challenge a long-held tradition of male choruses conducted by male conductors in the United States.
What? You already said there aren't very many women who do what you do. So now this is just a conclusion.
It's also broken.
Why is would in that?
Well, yeah, because it is challenging, but it also then says a long-held tradition of male choruses. Well, I guess it's not broken, but it's a really long descript like noun phrase.
What do you mean a long-held tradition? You don't mean that. It's not. No one cherishes this long-held tradition. That's just the way they've always done it.
Yeah.
We already know that you're breaking new ground, which is amazing.
Yeah, this is weird. It's like a point in your favor has now turned against you because you're bitching about it.
Yeah, well, it's just like, what do you do? Because like, it's an amazing, Patricia, don't get me wrong. It's an amazing accomplishment. That fact at the very top, I'm intensely interested in that fact at the very top. But then you like go to a convention and complain about the cisgender male banter.
Yeah.
Cut it. And then you double down on this like conclusion of you're challenging a long held tradition of male choruses conducted by a male. I already got that from the very first sentence. So you're not telling me anything new.
Yeah.
Maybe one more paragraph just to see if we can get to like a point where she actually does something.
In efforts to extend choral experiences to more students at the University of Louisville, I wrote and presented a proposal passed by the music faculty to establish a new men's ensemble, the Singing Cardsmen.
You already name dropped the Singing Cardsmen earlier.
Multiple times.
Now you're establishing the Singing Cardsmen.
We're going back in time. This is all.
I would we have to cut that whole second paragraph and third paragraph. Just got to go because like she only mentioned the convention to talk about to bitch about the cisgender male banter.
That's it.
So this is a point in your favor. You proposed to establish this new men's ensemble for the university. By the way, it's Louisville, Ben. It's not Louisville. It's Louisville. And I mean, but you did this? Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's the type of shit we got to talk about. You doing things.
The ensemble began with 15 members. It quickly gained popularity on campus and doubled in size by the spring semester. Cardsmen quickly proved to be ambassadors through their collaboration with local public schools and other departments and organizations at the University of Louisville.
Thank you.
One of which resulted in a viral YouTube video in their first year. Okay.
Okay.
I collaborated with the University of Louisville prevention, education, and advocacy on campus and in the community center in writing and producing a music video speaking out against sexual assault on college campuses. So long sentence. Lady Gaga was promoting the documentary, The Hunting Ground.
Wait,
Her
what?
efforts. This seems like came out of nowhere.
Where did Gaga come from? I thought you were collaborating with the University of Louisville Prevention, Education, and Advocacy on campus. Wait, what? Oh, she capitalized campus and community center. All y'all stop capitalizing things. It's Trumpy. Stop it. You don't just capitalize random nouns. Like, yeah. What? Okay, but she's collaborating with the University of Louisville Prevention, Education, and Advocacy. I guess that's an organization. And she collaborated on a writing and producing a music video speaking out against sexual assault on college campuses. Then all of a sudden, Lady Gaga was promoting the documentary, The Hunting Ground. Okay, go ahead. It's going to be explained, but that just comes out of nowhere. That's like so strange that of all people, Lady Gaga, like, hello. All right, go ahead.
It's like you could just introduce any random fact. At the time, so-and-so was digging for gold. It's like, right. Okay.
I know, it's so strange. Like, what, but how did you come? That's just a very odd sentence, but go ahead.
Her efforts consisted of organizing a college acapella.
Ben.
Acapella. Why is it?
It's a thing.
Well, no, but there's a space there. Is that right?
Acapella, it's singing without musical accompaniment.
I understand, but does it have the space in the word, or is it one word? I always thought it was one word.
I think it's two words. That might be a case where you would want to italicize it potentially.
So if you
both of the words. No, it's two words.
Oh, okay. A college a cappella contest singing out against sexual assault. The singing cardsmen placed in the top 3 videos from entries across the country and were referenced in USA Today and Huffington Post. Their video increased their presence on campus and through the choral community.
All right, that's a point in your favor. You didn't organize it in the best possible way. Lady Gaga just like jumps onto the stage out of nowhere, which that's like separate action from what your team actually did.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like her efforts consisted of organizing a college a cappella contest. It's like you should have said this thing. We joined a college a cappella contest. To Lady
Gaga. Yeah.
Promoted, you know, from something about Lady Gaga. And why does The Hunting Ground, even the fact that she was promoting this documentary, The Hunting Ground, which we probably haven't seen, you could cut all that part, but like, we get it. She was doing you guys joined a cappella contest that Lady Gaga was doing.
Yeah.
And you did well. That's great. That needs to be rearranged. Okay. We're way out of time on,
yep.
Patricia. Thank you, Patricia. Editing needs a lot of work. Content there can be amazing, but boy, you really got to obey that commandment to put your best foot forward and just generally don't complain about stuff. You just not winning any points by complaining about things. I mean, notice in that whole aside, it's a long paragraph about this whole convention and a bunch of background things about these sessions that has nothing to do with Patricia taking any action whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the entire point of all of that, because she just leaves this convention.
Yeah.
But the entire point of that whole anecdote was that she wanted to say cisgender male banter without, solving it or doing anything about it or whatever. It's just this like, it sucked. which yeah, I'm sure it does, but you're not winning any point. You're not making any progress. That's not moving the ball forward.
Yeah.
Cool. I think this has the potential to be awesome. It's not awesome right now, but it has the potential. And that first, right off the bat, man, I think your first paragraph, we've got it. I am a professional choral conductor. There are 8 women in the United States conducting men's choruses at Division I universities, and I am one of them. Actually, you could change that all to just one sentence. I am one of 8 women in the United States conducting men's choruses at Division I universities, period.
More cutting takes time.
Right. But boy, lead with that fact and then explain like kind of what your day-to-day looks like and focus on wins. That could be excellent, I think.
Yeah. Okay, last one is Grace's personal statement.
This is a long episode of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Ben and I are kind of completionists. This will get us down to the end of all of the submissions that we have. I am an undergraduate student with professional experience in both theater and legal industries. In the last 3 years, I have completed 2 6-month-long full-time work opportunities. Kind of vague, huh?
Well, it was vague from the get-go. Professional experience? Like,
She's protesting too much. She's an undergrad who is self-conscious about it, apparently.
Yeah.
If you want to emphasize your professional experience, you can.
Just talk about it.
Well, don't even mention that you're an undergraduate student. Like, just instead emphasize the professional experience that you have, and don't say professional experience that I have. Instead, for the love of God, say what the fuck you do. Like, what is Grace telling us? I have completed 2 6-month-long full-time work opportunities.
Whoa. Wow.
You could be a garbage carrier. You could be a CEO of a giant corporation. You're telling us nothing in specific. It's just so broad. I held a production management position with a professional theater company in Boston. Then I worked in practice management at the firm Goodwin Proctor. Ben's shaking his head because the verbs here are held. What did you do? Held a position.
Whoa.
Yeah, but what did you do? Then I worked in practice management. Yeah, I know, but what did you do there? What does that mean?
This is also grammatically incorrect. These are 2 sentences forced together with a comma in the word then. You can't do that. And I don't understand why you're telling me these 2 things together.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about the production management position, or tell me about the practice management position at Goodwin Proctor.
Pick a story. Yeah.
Pick a story and jump into it.
I might be like presuming too much, but my interpretation of this is, okay, she's an undergrad. She doesn't have that much work experience. She's going out of her way to try to emphasize her work experience, but the way she's doing it is having the exact opposite of that intended effect and making it look like, oh, okay, you had a couple internships.
Yeah.
If you instead pick one of these jobs and talk about the important work you did there, I would forget that you're an undergrad. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, wow, this is a professional person.
And I'd forget that, or never know that it was 6 months. Yeah, that's probably on your resume, but it's not something I'd be thinking about. Like, oh, well, this was a short stint. You're just telling us what you did there. And I'm like, presuming it probably went on longer.
Stop protesting so much.
Yeah.
Say what you did. Leave the conclusions out of it. Say what you did, and we will magically infer more than you actually did. When I began my position at Goodwin, the firm had no comprehensive system to track the thousands of mentorship pairings between associates and partners. I created a plan to keep track of all attorney mentor-mentee pairings. Probably just cut attorney. I created a plan to keep track of mentor-mentee pairings across Goodwin's 13 offices. I began by collecting any available mentorship information from the firm's online employee database and making a list of those pairings. I filled in the gaps by comparing the personal records kept by attorney development managers and reaching out to associates and partners directly. Once I had this list, I created a spreadsheet with the name of every associate in the firm, their department, practice area, and mentorship pairing. I maintained this database by making updates based on weekly hiring and departure reports and making daily changes to mentor assignments. Probably don't need weekly, probably don't need daily. I also conducted monthly and quarterly audits of this information for accuracy.
Yeah, we may not need that, but overall, I would say this is like much, much stronger than your first paragraph.
Yeah, just lead with this.
Yeah.
It's when like, I began at
you're doing shit. And I would have no idea that you were there for only 6 months. For all I'd know, this is your job at Goodwin, which is, by the way, a good law firm. So
yeah, if I cared how long you were there, which I don't, I would look back at your resume and I would go, oh, 6 months. Wow, looks like she did a lot in those 6 months.
Yep.
But when you lead with, I completed 2 6-month-long full-time work opportunities, it's like, oh, so 2 6-month short-term jobs, like, well, kind of sounds like a college kid doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. It's the exact opposite of the intended effect, which happens so frequently. I think you can cut all this daily, weekly, literally in 2 sentences. She goes daily, weekly, weekly, daily, monthly, and quarterly.
Yeah.
It's like, just say what you did. We don't really care. I was later told that since the firm had begun remote work, the frequency of meetings between mentors and their mentees had seemed to be dropping. Really, that blows because it's so easy to do remote meetings. I mean, wow. I proposed adding another component to the spreadsheet to track the frequency of meetings between mentors and their mentees. Based on this information, I would reach out. Boy, would is a word that needs to be removed from most of these personal statements. You could have just said, based on this information, I reached out to mentors.
Yeah.
Instead, based on this information, I would reach out to mentors to remind them of who their mentees were and help them set up virtual meetings. I successfully reached out to hundreds of mentors and facilitated dozens of virtual mentoring sessions. These are really good facts. I like all that.
Hey, before we go on, I did want to make a small tweak. She said, I was later told that since the firm had begun remote work, the frequency of meetings between mentors and their mentees had seemed to be dropping. Just say, when the firm began remote work, the meetings between mentors and mentees, declined or something like that.
Yeah, don't say seemed to be dropping.
Yep.
Just say that the frequency of these meetings declined.
Yep. And also drop the fact that you were told this.
Right.
Like, the impression I had was that you were on top of this database and now someone else has to come in and tell you that, hey, things aren't working out. It sounds oddly like you sound oddly disconnected from something that you have taken responsibility for.
Yeah.
So let's just drop that fact.
Yep. We're almost done. There's only 2 more paragraphs. It's very short.
Okay.
Throughout my time in this position, probably cut that, I kept detailed notes of this process and others I was engaged in to create a guide that I could pass on to future student employees and new team members. Can we cut out student? Can we just say I could pass on to new team members?
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is, again, Grace protesting too much, like having to admit that it was a student job.
Yeah.
Going out of her way to remind you, hey, in case you forgot, I'm an undergrad. Which is certainly not the impression that she's trying to leave, but she's definitely leaving that impression. Towards the end of my time at the firm, I trained an incoming full-time employee on the mentor-mentee tracking process. I think you could just say before I left the firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about towards?
Towards. Well, first of all, that's British. So in America, we say toward, you drop the S, but it's also just a weird, like, I wouldn't even use either of those.
How about before I left the firm, or when I left the firm, I trained an incoming full-time employee on the mentor-mentee tracking process. That's fine. If you want to include that fact, which I think is kind of cool,
Yeah.
like you created this process, you wrote this manual, you trained someone before you left. That's like you're hired, right? Like that's like Ben and I would love to hire you.
Yeah. Cause you take responsibility. You're not just like, mic drop, I'm out of here. Did you already talk about the full time thing? I
Just don't
trained in,
need to just drop it. I mean,
it's like, it's more protesting, right? I trained
right.
it to come in full
I wasn't
time.
full time, but they were full time, or maybe I was full time, but it was only 6 months. You know, like I would. They're not a student. I am.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Yeah, just you trained a replacement. That's great. While
Yeah.
working at Goodwin, I had the opportunity to sit down with attorneys to learn about their various practice areas. Based on what I learned through these discussions and my background in theater, which weirdly was mentioned in the first sentence and the last sentence, but that's it.
Yep.
Based on what I learned through these discussions and my background in theater, I hope to gain experience in intellectual property law and practice in the entertainment industry. It's a B plus, and it could be an A.
It could definitely be an A. Yeah, get rid of some of this protesting and focus on what you did. More of that. You did a good job, and your writing is actually clear when you started picking up speed here. Like you have short sentences, a lot of I sentences. I like what this could become.
I think you got to cut professional theater company out of your first paragraph and cut theater out of your last paragraph, unless you're going to explain it a little bit more. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
it just is
Absolutely.
weirdly like, why are you talking about that if you're working in a law firm?
Or just jump into the law firm experience. And if you tighten this up and you need more stuff to talk about, then talk about your theater stuff. And then it could actually make sense in your final paragraph.
It is
If
short, you know? So
yeah.
like if the theater came after the law firm,
Yep.
you could train your replacement, and then you could talk about what you did in the theater, and then you could do your last paragraph, or the other way around, right? You could, although if the theater stuff came first, I'm not sure you want to open with the theater stuff, because if you can get to Goodwin Proctor more quickly, I think that's probably good.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a powerful name drop.
And it's not really it's not really even about the name drop, right? It's about what she did there. She did kick-ass stuff. Like it's cool that it's Goodwin Proctor, but I'm more impressed that it's a firm and she's doing this work there.
Yeah, I agree. Expand more on Goodwin and maybe just leave the theater part out of it. I suppose you could leave that in the last sentence as just an aside. So like based on what I learned through these discussions, and my background in theater, I think I want to do entertainment industry stuff like that. I think that's okay. And if I was interested, I could look at your resume and see the theater stuff. I think that would be fine as well, if you don't want to really dwell on it. All right. It's time for a new feature of the show. It's called Today's Violations.
This is a recap of several of the rules that we were upset, that people violated and we got upset about.
Yep.
And maybe this can provide some ideas for future commandments, but one of them was acronyms, right? We saw tons of acronyms. We saw VP, we saw USAF, we saw AF South, we saw V or FIC and ODNI. If you don't know what any of those mean, well,
you don't give a fuck what any of those mean.
That's probably how your reader feels.
Yeah.
Okay. We saw lots of dates today as well. Oddly specific about the time of year, fall 2020 and summer of 2020. So don't need to go that specific. Adverbs, at least some of them that we saw, were regularly, systematically, widely, simultaneously, ultimately.
Well, I should also add daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Like search your shit for LY space.
Yeah.
And those things would disappear.
Okay. Oops. I put often in the adjectives, but we had some adjectives as well. Often is an adverb, right? I believe. We had many, widespread. There was a bunch other, but I didn't get 'em in here.
Numerous.
Yeah, numerous.
Numerous sucks. Numerous is
Oh,
always irritating. That's one
it's
of the
so
worst
long.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Numerous. Whoa, what do you mean? Well, there were a number of them. Oh yeah, what was the number?
Oh, we had variety too.
Oh yeah, variety. Or we get wide variety, shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then we had more mental states. Some examples include people discovering things, people realizing things, people finding things even.
Yep.
Okay. Preambles.
That's just like when you think you have to start every sentence with 2 or 3 words and a comma.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't. You can just get straight to your sentence. Like, what's the actual sentence?
The examples here were recently fielding questions. I did yada yada. Okay.
Well, wait, there was one that was particularly egregious. I'm going to go back to the top and figure out where that was. It was recently, comma, and then his first sentence. Fielding questions, comma, and then his second sentence. When prompted, comma, and then his third sentence. And it's like, you don't have to start every sentence with like extra words. You could just get to your point. Okay.
Yeah. And the other example was where it was the first sentence of the person's personal statement. And before I started teaching cadets at West Point, I led a company of 120 soldiers. Michael's personal statement was awesome, but that I didn't understand why we had a reference to something that I was completely unfamiliar with. Like the point of a preamble is to ground you, right? Like before this thing happened, and presumably I know what that thing is. So now I have a reference point. But Michael just threw us in the deep end and then threw us somewhere else. So, okay. Another thing is people using way too long of sentences and long paragraphs. Your hard and fast rule is it better not be longer than 35 words, which itself is too long, right?
Yeah, I think 25, man. I think it's 35 for me. And even then,
it's risky.
There's really no excuse for it. There's just no reason. You could just use a damn period sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like, anywhere that you've used a comma, consider, or an em dash, I wonder, or God forbid, a semicolon. Wonder if I could just put a period. Yes. Yeah, you could. And it'll be better. I think most people should just try to stick to 25 words. I really like, show me the sentence that you think you just can't get your point across if you don't go over 25 words. I don't believe you.
Okay. The next one, annoying words that we heard today. We've talked about these words before, but we saw passion, and I'm pretty sure we saw unique. Don't need them.
Oh, there was another one. Oh, well, we saw as well as instead of
and. Yeah, as well as.
And we saw, there was one more. Oh, obtain. I really don't like obtain. I just think you could say get or whatever. It's just it's like this weird, like heavy-handed way of speaking. It doesn't, I don't know.
Okay. People capitalizing way too many things. The most common error is capitalizing job titles. We don't need your job title capitalized.
But what was it? Patricia just was like weirdly capitalized campus.
Campus, yes, and writing center.
Right. Yeah.
Not necessary.
Okay.
We talked about cutting. We ourselves tried to cut something. We got rid of a part of a sentence. Then we decided to get rid of the whole sentence. And then we decided to get rid of a whole nother sentence right next to it. So when you're working on your personal statement, write, and then cut, and cut again.
Don't try to do all this editing as you write.
Yep.
It's not going to come out perfectly formed. Write 4 pages and then edit it down to less than 2. It's okay to have a bunch of bullshit in there on the first draft. And then it's just gonna, as you edit, it's gonna get tighter and tighter and tighter down to, it does need to be somewhere between 1 and 2 pages, but that means you probably need to write quite a bit more than that before you go through this ruthless cutting process.
Okay. We would prefer that people use the present tense, like I sell whatever, or or the past tense, I sold something. So tell us what you're doing or what you did. This odd use of the word would. I would sell, or I would teach, or I would explain is strange. I don't know what the name of that tense is, but don't do that. Don't
Yeah,
use
it's
the
like a
word would.
past imperfect or something like that. It's one of those types of things where it's like there are contexts in which you want to talk about something that it's like you used to do it or you sometimes did it, but you don't do it. Then you didn't do it anymore, right?
Mhm.
Like I would drink 7 beers every day, and then I decided that I don't want to do that, and I did stop doing that. Like that's when you would use that form. You would. It's not just like these are the things that I did that were good. You wouldn't say I would do them. Just say I did them.
Yep.
Okay.
Or I do them now. Yeah.
Right. Or I do them now. Yeah. Well, that's another thing. There were strange tense problems with Michael. Started off in the past tense, but didn't explain like at all what he does now. So it was just this: I sold software, I hunted for new business, I called to set up meetings. And I'm like, where are we? What planet are we on? I don't know what do you do now though? So then it was just this like strange choice to lead with that past tense.
Yeah. Okay. We had people protesting their inexperience or really anything else that they're lacking. They have this need to talk about it and like try to boost it up. It's like just either don't talk about it or don't boost it up and you will be fine.
Yeah, emphasize the shit that you want to emphasize. And if there's stuff that you want to de-emphasize, then probably omit.
Yeah.
Like the fact that this is a student job and you're still a student and you're worried about that part of your application, apparently, then okay, then don't say that you're a student. Don't say that it was a 6-month job. Just talk about what you did at that job. And I might just accidentally infer that you were working there full time for 4 years. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to make false inferences that are in your favor.
Yeah.
If you would let me, I would.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then complaining. Stop complaining. Today we had the cisgender complaint.
And don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's not a valid complaint. I just don't think that the personal statement is an appropriate place to just be throwing in random complaints.
No. How does anyone think that that's a point in your favor? You're like, oh, and then you wouldn't believe the shit that happened. It's like, okay, I don't care how shitty it is. Complaining about it is not winning. Winning is doing something about it. And if you didn't do anything about it, then what's there to say about it?
Yeah, I mean, what other impression am I supposed to get if you're complaining? Then I infer that you are one who complains.
Mm-hmm. You're a potential problem
or
student.
A complainer. Like that's what complainers do, is complain. So you're complaining. So you are a complainer, at least in that moment. And if you're not solving that problem, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
On your personal statement. All this advice is for your personal statement.
Okay. That's
Beautiful.
all I got. Yeah.
Those were today's violations. The cutting one is not really a violation. That's just a piece of advice that people ignore.
This is a mix of like commands, right? Tips, I guess not cutting. Your violation
failure
is you didn't cut.
Failure to cut is the violation.
All right.
Beautiful. All right.
Yeah. Well, okay. If you endured with us this long.
Yeah. Thank you.
And by the way, we recorded 20 minutes before this and then cut it.
We did. We had a technical difficulty this morning.
My bad.
No worries.
Be LSAT famous. Get on an upcoming show by emailing help@thinkinglsat.com. If you want to submit a personal statement, you have to send it through go to lsat.link/statement. Yes, that's lsat.link/statement. You'll be asked a series of questions. And if you can answer correctly those questions, then you are welcome to submit your personal statement to the show and we'll try to read it. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, that's where you can prepare for the LSAT with us. email help@lsatdemon.com or just go to lsatdemon.com and sign up for a free account. That was episode 316 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.